The bell over the pharmacy door chirped, a sound too bright for the grayness of late afternoon. I looked up from my station and saw Robbie Jensen standing in the entryway, hands jammed into the pockets of his windbreaker, eyes darting between the displays of cough syrup and the greeting cards. It was the third time this month he'd come in for an oxycodone script, and this time the paper he handed me felt odd, slightly stiffer, edges too sharp. I glanced at the signature. The doctor's handwriting slanted just a little too neatly, as if copied carefully rather than scrawled at a desk between patients. My pulse caught, just for a second, something about the way Robbie avoided looking at me, staring instead at the poster about flu shots behind my head. I glanced at the date on the prescription, then at the insurance info. Nothing jumped out, but the weight in my chest stayed. I told myself not to jump to conclusions. People get sick, get hurt, wind up needing pain meds. Still, as I turned the slip over, my thumb caught on a torn corner, and I couldn't let go of the feeling that I'd missed something the last 2 times. I forced a smile. Just a minute, Robbie. Gotta check the system. He nodded, still not meeting my eyes. The hum of the fridge behind the counter filled the silence, loud to me but probably invisible to him. I watched his fingers drum the counter as I ran the prescription through the PDMP, Prescription Drug Monitoring Program, while his reflection in the glass case bounced with each nervous tap. He never used to need anything stronger than ibuprofen. The script's sharp edges pressed into my palm. There was a time, not long ago, when I wouldn't have thought twice about filling a prescription from Dr. Grant's office. But last month, when the state's new tracking system went live, suddenly patterns started to emerge where before there'd only been isolated data points. I noticed the same handful of names popping up, connected by addresses, clinics, and an unsettling number of overlapping dates. Some scripts were filled here, some across town at Barton's. The system didn't lie, but what did it really mean? Behind the counter, I reached for the phone, hesitating. In a town this size, every call echoed, every rumor grew legs. Robbie's mother taught 3rd grade with my wife. My daughter used to play at his house after school. If I reported this, it would ripple through dinner tables and church pews, and people would know who started it. A bead of sweat gathered at my hairline, prickling despite the cold draft. I wiped it away, heart thudding with the possibilities. What if I was wrong? What if I ruined someone's life for nothing? My hand hovered just above the receiver. Robbie looked up then, just for an instant, eyes rimmed red, and I caught a flash of something. Shame, maybe. Or desperation. Is it gonna be much longer? I swallowed hard. Just making sure everything's in order, man. Almost done. The urge to wave it through, to just fill the damn thing and get him out of here, was overwhelming. The community is tight, and I'm not just a pharmacist. I'm the guy who sponsors the Little League team, who volunteers at the Harvest Festival. There's a trust in that, a weight that's heavier than any policy manual. But as I double-checked the script, one line made me pause, the clinic phone number. I'd called Dr. Grant's office 100 times, but this number looked off. A digit switched, area code different. I squinted, then checked the clinic's number in the computer, no match. A chill ran through me, starting in my fingertips and crawling up my arms. I set the script aside, marking it with a small yellow tab, nothing drastic, just a note to remind myself to look at it again. I told Robbie it'd be a few more minutes while I clarified something with his doctor, and he nodded, jaw clenched. I could hear the clock ticking, louder and louder, like it was pushing me to make a choice I wasn't ready for. I didn't make the call. By the time I'd finished my shift, the script was still sitting, flagged but unresolved, between forgotten insurance forms and receipts for antacids. I wrapped it in a paperclip and slid it into my bag, telling myself I'd look at it again with fresh eyes at home. That night, while my wife rinsed dishes in the tiny kitchen, the script sat on the table between us, a silent accusation. The TV mumbled from the living room, but I kept turning the paper over and over in my hands, looking for answers in the ink. She wiped her hands on a towel, came over, and sat across from me. "You look like you swallowed a tack," she said softly. I tried to find the words. Something's not right. Robbie keeps coming in with these scripts. But this one, the handwriting, the number, it's off. I don't know if I'm overthinking it or if the words choked off. She studied me, her eyes steady. "If you're worried, there's probably a reason." I closed my eyes, feeling the tension coil at the base of my skull. But what if I'm wrong? I could ruin everything. His job, his family. Everyone knows everyone here. She reached out, covering my hand with hers, warm and certain. "And if you're right?" The question echoed in the cramped kitchen, louder than the clatter of dishes or the TV. The script pressed against my palm, edges biting into the skin. I stared down at it, trying to imagine what would happen if I did nothing, or if I did what I was supposed to. Neither option felt safe anymore. I looked up at her, searching her face for reassurance I already knew she couldn't give, and realized the question wasn't going away. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. The computer screen flickered, harsh blue-gray light making my eyes ache. I tapped through the state's prescription monitoring program, my fingers fumbling over the keys like I was sneaking into a locked drawer. The names I entered spun up a list. Oxycodone, hydromorphone, filled early, again and again. The same patient, different prescribers. Spikes I couldn't ignore. My heartbeat thudded, shallow and quick. The numbers weren't just mistakes, they formed a pattern, one that didn't make sense unless something was very, very wrong. My mouth tasted sour, thinking of the last time the patient had come in, sallow skin, sweat beading on his brow even as the autumn wind howled outside. I scrolled further, the mouse trembling under my hand. 5 doctors in 3 months. This wasn't just doctor shopping. Someone was writing scripts they shouldn't, or forging them. My hands sat cold and still over the keyboard, palms damp. It was the kind of thing you read about in newsletters, never here, never someone you nodded to every Sunday at the diner. I stared at the screen, pulse in my throat, wondering how deep this went, and if it would swallow me next. I dialed the clinic number, my thumb pressing hard enough to whiten the skin. Halfway through the second ring, someone picked up, a woman's voice, clipped and sharp. "This is Dr. Mahoney's office." I cleared my throat. "Hi, this is Greg at Hometown Pharmacy. I've got a question about a prescription for Mark R., one of your patients. There's been a lot of activity on his PDMP." A pause. The static on the line buzzed. "We're aware of all our patients' medications. You're not the prescriber, Greg." My jaw clenched. "He's had scripts from 5 different clinics. Some overlap. I'm worried." "You're not a physician," she snapped. "If you refuse a legitimate prescription, you'll be reported." "Thank you." The line went dead. I stared at the silent phone, anger flushing through me, my ears, my throat, my clenched fists. All their talk about patient safety, and suddenly, I was the problem for doing my job. A bell chimed from the front. Mark stood at the counter, hunched inside his jacket, eyes flickering to the shelves behind me. His cheeks were sunken, lips split. I recognized the script in his hand, a different doctor's name this time. I took a breath, my mind rehearsing the words as my heart thumped. "I can't fill this, Mark. It's not safe. You've had too many." He cut me off. "I need this. You know what happens if I don't get it." Behind him, his wife appeared, face pinched, voice tight. "You're supposed to help people. You know us. Why are you doing this?" Her words stung, sharper than I thought possible from someone I'd watched buy cough syrup for their little girl just last winter. A stillness fell over the room, the kind that makes your skin prickle. Mark's hands shook. "You're killing me," he muttered, voice so low it sounded like a threat. They left, door banging behind them. I stood rooted, chest tight, wishing the world would slow down just long enough for me to catch my breath. By the next morning, the stories had already started. First, a neighbor who avoided my eyes at the post office. Then, a father from Little League, voice stiff, "Heard you're refusing people their meds now." I caught the whispers while I swept up behind the register. "Greg thinks he's better than the doctors. Guess we know where his loyalties are." Each comment landed like a pebble in my shoe, impossible to ignore, even as I tried to keep my hands steady counting pills. A woman I'd known since grade school brought her prescription up, eyes darting. "I'd like this filled at Walgreens instead," she said, not meeting my gaze. I nodded, jaw locked, shoulders stiff under the weight of their suspicion. The parking lot emptied out by noon. The ringing phone barely broke the silence. It was another transfer, another patient going elsewhere. The cash register drawer felt lighter each time, the cold air biting at my skin as I watched people cross the street rather than step through my door. I stared at the shelves lined with amber bottles, the silence thick as syrup, and wondered how much longer I could do the right thing if it meant standing here alone. The last script on the counter trembled in my hand. Another name, a different signature, but that same pit in my stomach twisting tighter each time I saw it. I kept glancing at the door, pulse jumping at every shadow that passed the frosted glass. It wasn't just business on the line anymore. It felt like the whole town was waiting for me to pick a side, and no matter what I did, I was sure I'd lose something I couldn't get back. The phone rang once more, its shrill tones slicing through the quiet. I hesitated, hand hovering, not sure who would be on the other end, or what I'd have left to say. The fluorescent lights in the back room flickered, humming above my head as I examined the prescription slip again. At first glance, it was Dr. Levin's signature, the sharp L, the looping flourish at the end. But up close, the ink feathered out in a way I'd never seen, the line a little too heavy, as if someone hesitated and pressed too hard. I compared it against 2 other scripts from Dr. Levin in the logbook. They were identical, almost traced. My stomach tightened as I flipped to the PDMP printout on my computer screen. Patients who supposedly picked up their oxycodone refilled 3 days ago already had a new script pending. I reached under the counter, grabbing a folder, and began sliding in photocopies. Each new slip felt like a puzzle piece that shouldn't fit but did. The logbook, the slips, the timestamped security footage. I marked the dates in a neat, desperate script. Each click of my pen echoed in the empty break room, a small act of defiance against the quiet thrum of something bigger than me. Every prescription, every mismatch, every odd refill request sharpened my sense of purpose. It was methodical. Matching dates, highlighting names, cross-referencing addresses. The more I dug, the clearer it became. Somebody was laundering scripts through my store. Sweat pricked at my hairline. My pulse thumped louder the closer I got to a complete timeline. I braced my elbow against the cool steel table and exhaled, picturing the faces of the kids I'd filled antibiotics for last winter, the regulars who trusted me to catch mistakes. I wanted to believe the evidence would be enough, that if I just documented it right, someone would have to listen. But a small voice in my head whispered, "What if it isn't?" 2 days later, my phone vibrated in my pocket, a blocked number. I stepped outside, the cold wind biting my cheeks as I answered. The investigator's voice was clipped, bored even. "We need documentation, not just suspicions. The board can't act unless you have proof the doctor isn't involved, or that the patient forged it. Chain of custody matters. Do you have originals?" I shifted my weight, gravel crunching beneath my shoe. My fingers tingled from the cold and the pressure of holding back everything I wanted to shout. "I have copies, timestamps, PDMP reports." "Something's wrong," I said, but it sounded small, even to me. He sighed. "If you can't prove intent, we can't open a case. Call us if you have more." The call ended with a click, leaving me staring at the clouded sky, feeling like the world had tilted just enough to make walking forward impossible. I told myself it was protocol, that systems needed proof, not gut feelings. But the space behind my ribs ached like a bruise, as if my caution was a failing. Inside, the phone screen still glowed with the trace of the blocked call. For a second, it looked like a warning. The next day, I was restocking the shelves when the clinic manager appeared at the counter. Her smile was too tight, her voice just a bit too low. "Heard you've been asking questions," she said, setting a stack of insurance forms down hard enough to make the bell ring. Her nails tapped out a slow rhythm, the sound harsh against the quiet. "Wouldn't want patients getting scared off. Some of them really need their medicine, you know?" My hands stilled on the shelf of pill bottles. The perfume she wore clung to the air, sweet and suffocating. Behind her, another tech, one I'd seen around town for years, avoided my eyes. "Small towns remember things," she added, voice soft as velvet thread. My skin prickled, heat rising up my neck. The unspoken threat knotted in the air between us. If I kept pushing, if I made trouble, there would be consequences, lost trust, whispered rumors, maybe worse. She leaned forward, just enough that I could see the faint tremor in her jaw. "We take care of our own here." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. She left, heels clicking, and the silence that followed felt heavier than before, a warning that grew with every step she took away. That afternoon, a regular came in, Mrs. Bailey, the one who always brought cookies at Christmas. Her voice was shaky, her eyes red. "Did you hear about Tim?" she whispered. "He's in the hospital. They said it was his heart," but she broke off, voice muffled by the scarf pressed to her mouth. My throat closed as I tried to remember if Tim's name was in the stack of flagged scripts. I could barely get the words out. Was he on anything new? She nodded, tears welling, and I felt the floor tilt. Every script I'd filled, Everyone I'd questioned, replayed in my mind like damning evidence. Had I missed something? Could I have stopped it? The guilt was a stone in my stomach, settling deep and cold. I tried to reassure her, but the words sounded rehearsed. When she left, her scent lingered, and I pressed my hands to my face, wishing I could scrub away the image of Tim's chart, the looping signature, the unchecked box on the PDMP report. I wanted to fix it, to go back and make a different call. The phone on the counter blinked with a new message, another patient asking about an early refill. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, the disputed script in my hand. It was against protocol to take originals home, chain of custody, evidence, professional boundaries. My hands shook as I slipped it into an envelope, sealing it tight with a strip of tape. I could lose my license for this. But the thought of Tim in a hospital bed, of Mrs. Bailey's voice, made the risk feel small. I opened my laptop, the blue light harsh against the dark. In the email to the board, I attached scans, dates, my notes, the copy of the forged signature. I hesitated, cursor hovering over send, then pressed it down. The air was still, charged, as if waiting for something to break. My phone buzzed against the wood, a new number lighting up the screen. I stared at it, my breath caught in my throat, knowing whatever came next wasn't going to be simple or safe. The investigator's shoes squeaked against the linoleum as he stepped inside the pharmacy, briefcase swinging, face unreadable behind glasses. I tried to keep my hands steady above the counter, but my fingertips tapped the edge, betraying the restless energy under my skin. He nodded at me, all business, before flipping open the case. The air felt thick, every second stretching as he pulled out the files I'd given him, the forged slips, the PDMP printouts with mismatched dates and numbers. I caught a whiff of antiseptic, way too strong, the sharpness almost dizzying. Outside, the muffled voices of clinic staff drifted through the glass. I glimpsed Dr. Welch standing stiffly in the parking lot, jaw clenched, arms folded. For weeks I dreaded something like this, but now it was happening and I couldn't let my voice shake. The investigator's tone cut through. You said the handwriting was off on these two? I nodded. I'm sure of it. And the logbook? There are gaps. He clicked his pen, jotting notes, not looking up. Each scratch of his pen jabbed at my nerves. I felt the weight of every eye in town pressing against the glass, waiting to see if I'd crumble under a secret I was never supposed to uncover. He closed the folder, eyes narrowing. We'll need full access. Today. A shiver traveled up my arms. I wondered if the truth would be enough, or if it would just drag the whole town under with me. By afternoon, word spread faster than I could refill a single bottle. Mrs. Hargrove stormed past the counter, face blotchy. You happy now? She spat, not even looking me in the eye. Behind her, Bill from the hardware store caught my gaze, gave a tight nod, quiet support, but he didn't linger. I watched him leave, the bell above the door rattling like a warning. A cluster of regulars huddled at the end of aisle 3, heads close, voices low. I caught the word, traitor, the syllables hissing like steam. Sweat prickled my neck. Every time I turned, someone seemed to be watching. After closing, I lingered by the window, lights off, watching silhouettes gather under the clinic's flickering sign. Someone shouted, he's the reason they're coming. Their voices tangled with the hum of the soda machine and the dying light outside. I gripped the edge of the display case, feeling the hard ridges press into my palms. What started as a duty now felt like exile. I'd drawn a line in the sand, and I wasn't sure anyone would ever cross back to my side. A week passed before the news came. The patient who'd nearly overdosed was out of the woods. The doctor's voice on the phone was weary. She pulled through. Her family's grateful, I think. I could hear the sobs of relief in the background, distant but unmistakable. I slumped against the back office door, letting out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. The smell of dust and pill dust felt suddenly clean, almost sweet. At the same time, the ring started to crack. Names surfaced, quiet confessions behind closed doors, a nurse resigning without warning, a patient's husband returning his wife's pills with trembling hands. I watched as the investigator's car rolled up to the clinic again and again, each visit thinning the crowd that had once clogged the waiting room. I called the patient's family one evening. The mother's voice was raw. Thank you, she whispered. I don't know what would have happened. My throat tightened. I pressed my knuckles against the counter, grounding myself. For the first night in months, I slept without waking to the phantom ring of the after-hours line. But even as relief seeped in, I caught myself glancing over my shoulder, wary of what still lurked in the quiet corners of our town. Business ebbed back slowly, drip by uneasy drip. Some faces never returned, but others did, cautious, silent, sliding their prescriptions across the counter as if testing the air. Sheriff Wallace started stopping by with a nod, a wordless sign of respect, sometimes buying cough drops he didn't need. I'd see the investigator's car parked outside the diner and feel a strange pride, tinged with the memory of those long, anxious nights. Still, there were cracks I couldn't patch. Mrs. Hargrove crossed the street when I passed. Dr. Welch barely looked up when our paths crossed at the grocery store. The circle of friends I'd known since childhood now felt smaller, harder, like a shell that might never open again. But the pharmacy's shelves stayed stocked. The pills counted out, the labels lined up. My name, tarnished for some, carried a new weight with others. I kept the disputed script locked in my desk drawer, a reminder of how thin the line is between doing harm and trying to stop it. And every time I unlocked the door in the morning, I wondered what else the records might reveal, what secrets still waited between the lines I hadn't read yet. The lights in the pharmacy hum in the early morning quiet, a sound I used to find soothing. Now it just reminds me of all the conversations I'll never have again. Old friends who don't speak to me. Neighbors who stopped making eye contact at the store. I run my thumb along the countertop, tracing where the wood is worn smooth next to the register. My phone vibrates in my pocket, the automated alert from the state monitoring system. I don't flinch anymore. I open it and see another flagged script, routine, now, but it still tightens something in my chest. It's not like when I first found the forged slips, when every alert meant a choice between trust and suspicion. Yesterday, I passed Dr. Singh at the coffee shop. He nodded, stiff, eyes sliding away before I could say anything. I remember his voice from that night, tight, scared, cornered. A part of me wants to apologize, but I know I can't take any of it back. There's less laughter in the aisles now. I kept my license, but the cost hangs over me, heavy and permanent. I wonder if anyone realizes what didn't happen, who didn't overdose, who didn't end up in the ICU. The air tastes faintly of antiseptic. I think about the empty prescription pad I locked in the safe, the one with the mismatched scribble in the corner. I still haven't thrown it away. I don't know if I'm a hero or a traitor. Maybe there isn't a difference in a town this small. The phone buzzes again, and I listen to it ring, waiting to see if my hands will stop shaking. Mornings at the pharmacy are quieter now, even as the sun fissures through the blinds and scatters light across the counter. The smell of fresh coffee doesn't cut through the unease that's settled here. I sort through the prescription bins, fingers brushing the crisp, legitimate scripts. But my eyes always catch on the tiniest inconsistencies, wrong date, handwriting that's just a little too neat. My pulse taps out a worried rhythm at my wrist. I keep replaying the choices I made, stacking them against the faces I see at the grocery store, at church, in the school drop-off line. Had I missed something before? Could I have spotted the pattern sooner, stopped one more bottle from changing hands? My chest tightens with each, what if? The trust here isn't what it was. I see it in glances, in the way folks hesitate before sliding their prescriptions across the counter. I know I did the right thing, but it doesn't feel clean, not like I thought it would. Mrs. Keener stands at the counter, her eyes flickering from the credit card reader to my face. "You folks still keeping an eye out?" she asks, her voice low. My throat feels tight. I nod, not trusting myself to say more. When she leaves, silence rushes in behind her, heavy and watchful. Doubt lingers, a shadow between the pill bottles and the register drawer, never quite leaving me alone. I've changed things. Locked away the prescription pads, started double-checking the PDMP every afternoon, even for the regulars I've known for years. The computer screen glows as I scan through the database, each name a thread in some larger pattern I'm desperate not to miss again. My hands hover over the keyboard, tense, ready to flag anything that feels off. Emily pauses at the back door on her way in, tucking her hair behind her ear, voice hushed. "You see anyone strange hanging around?" she asks, glancing over her shoulder. "Not yet," I answer, keeping my voice even, but I find myself turning every time the bell over the door chimes. Each new face is a question now. A box of old scripts sits beside the shredder, waiting. I flip through them, searching, almost hoping, for signs I overlooked before. I promise myself I won't miss them again. But as the sun shifts and I spot a familiar doctor's handwriting where it shouldn't be, my heart stutters. Maybe it isn't over after all. The nurse called our name without looking up, and I flinched. Dad squeezed the arms of his chair, knuckles white against the plastic. The fluorescent lights hummed, too bright, flattening everything. I touched his shoulder, but his eyes were fixed on the swinging door, as if he could see through to whatever waited. Inside, Dr. Lin's voice was clipped. "Frank, Maya, thanks for coming in." She barely glanced at us. The file in her hands looked too thin. She started talking: plaques, tangles, cognitive decline. Alzheimer's. I felt my throat closing. Dad's hand twitched, just once. I wanted to reach for him, but I was afraid he'd pull away. The words hung between us, thick and medical and final. Dad's jaw clenched. "You're saying I'm—" His voice cracked like ice. Dr. Lin nodded, not gentle, just certain. "I'm sorry, Frank." I swallowed hard, but the room was tilting, and for a second I couldn't breathe. Everything we'd been, him mowing the lawn, arguing with the radio, dancing with Mom in the kitchen, slid out of reach. I kept listening, but all I could really hear was the static in my chest. My chest ached as Dr. Lin explained the next steps, her pen ticking over forms I didn't understand. Dad just shook his head, staring straight ahead. I tried to catch his eye, to anchor us, but he wouldn't look at me. We were handed a folder. Just like that. A life now sorted into a tabbed packet. Dad held it so tight the corners bent. I barely heard Dr. Lin's goodbye. I think I nodded. I felt small and cold, as if everything outside that room had frozen solid. We sat in the car, idling. Dad said nothing. The folder was digging into my lap, heavier than any book I'd ever held. Someone had written our last name wrong on the first page. Mayer, instead of Maya. I tried to shake it off, but the details kept catching. Why did the test summary say, "CT scan, done on the 10th, when our appointment was the 8th? There was a string of numbers by his name, one off from his insurance card. My fingers ran over the paperwork, skin prickling. It was too easy to brush off, but the little mistakes gnawed at me. Dad's prescription history listed a drug he'd never taken. My heart thudded, a slow drumbeat of dread. Could this all be clerical, or was I making excuses? Grasping for hope where there wasn't any? I watched Dad, his profile carved in the windshield glare, and wondered if I could trust what they'd given us. I needed so badly for something not to add up. Dad's hands were trembling, but when I tried to hand him the folder, he flinched. "Stop fussing, Maya." I hesitated. "Dad, some of this doesn't." He cut me off, voice sharp. "I don't care. I know what I heard in there. Don't start with your theories." His anger was a wall. I pressed my lips together, pulse fluttering. He looked away, jaw set, eyes shining just a little. I wanted to reach across, to say something that would make this less real. But all I could do was stare at the dashboard, feeling the air between us thicken. His breath was ragged. "What do you want me to do? Pretend this is nothing?" He wiped at his face, furious. "Just let me be. Please." The way he said it, like I was taking something from him, tore at something old inside me. I sat back, folding into myself. I wanted to argue, to insist, but the words tangled. The car felt crowded, grief and anger and silence pressing in from every side. Later, in the hallway, I cornered Dr. Lin before she disappeared behind the staff door. "Excuse me, I have some questions about my dad's file. There are inconsistencies." She was already moving, not meeting my eyes. "Everything relevant is in your packet. If you need referrals, call the number listed." I tried to keep my voice steady. "But some of these dates, his scan, and the medication, he's never." She cut me off, brisk. "Maya, I understand this is difficult. But nothing in the file changes the diagnosis. Our records are thorough." She was gone before I could say more, the door hissing shut behind her. I stood in the fluorescent-lit corridor, folder pressed against my ribs, heat building in my face. I didn't know what to do next, only that I couldn't let this drop. My heart was racing. I wondered if I was the only one who saw the cracks. The edge of the plastic chair squeaks beneath me as Jordan pushes the folder across the counter, careful to keep her voice low. She's younger than I am, with bright blue nails that drum lightly against the laminate. "I know it's confusing," she says, flicking her gaze at the next window. "But these things, they get mixed up. You just have to keep asking." My fingers feel numb from gripping Dad's forms. I glance at the chart again, something about the dates, the numbers. It's slippery, right out of my reach. Are you saying, I start? But Jordan shakes her head, lips barely moving. I didn't say anything. But, sometimes charts get filed with the wrong patient number. For a second her eyes soften, and I catch the faint scent of her coconut hand lotion. The air in the records office is dry and heavy, but suddenly I want to breathe deeper, like maybe this is the crack in the wall I need. She lowers her voice even more. You didn't hear it from me. But if you see something off, don't let them brush you off. Okay? There's a tiny pulse of relief in my chest. I nod, my throat tight with something I can't name. Hope, maybe, but fragile. I want to ask more, but the line behind me shifts, restless. Jordan's already straightening a pile of forms, and the moment's gone. I turn back into the corridor and immediately the fluorescent lights feel colder, the hum louder. The map taped to the wall is already curling at the corners, arrows pointing in opposite directions for neurology and records. I let out a shaky breath and follow the signs, Dad's folder clutched under my arm, the letters of his name pressed against my palm through the paper. At neurology, the receptionist barely looks up. That's records, not us, she says, sliding a stack of intake forms away from her elbow. My pulse stutters. I want to argue but my voice catches somewhere beneath my ribs. I mumble and retrace my steps. Medical records sends me to admitting. Admitting sends me to billing, just in case. I start to sweat, my jacket too hot, fingers slipping on the folder's slick edge. Each person says the same thing. Not me, not here, try over there. Eventually I stop at a vending machine, cold air blasting my ankles, and stare at the glowing snacks like they might offer advice. My temples throb. I look at the forms again, searching for anything, a number, a date, a name, that will unlock something. All I see is Dad's name and the ugly word, probable Alzheimer's. I push the heel of my hand into my eye until stars swim in the dark. There's no one else in this hallway, just the soft clatter of someone's footsteps echoing off linoleum. I feel smaller with every department I cross off my list. Mom calls as I sit on a cracked bench near the elevator. Her voice is pinched. Maya, are you making progress? She means. Did you fix this yet? I can't fix anything. My stomach twists as I picture Dad sitting at home, waiting. I hang up without saying goodbye, my shoulders prickling, as if someone's about to tap me on the back and demand I move along. The hospital smell, antiseptic and old coffee, seeps into my clothes, heavy as a question I can't answer. When I get home, the house is too quiet. Dad's in his recliner, blanket tucked around his knees, staring at an infomercial with the sound off. Light from the TV flickers across his face, making him look older, somehow. I clear my throat and he blinks at me, eyes foggy. He tries to smile. Your mother used to make shepherd's pie on Wednesdays, he says, though it's Monday. His hands tremble, just barely. I set the folder on the table and kneel beside him. We're going to figure this out. I promise. My words feel thin, like I'm talking through glass. He's quiet for a long time. If the doctors say it's that, maybe it's true, he whispers. I feel it like a punch, the way his hope drains out, slow and quiet. I squeeze his hand, but guilt pulls in my stomach. Maybe I'm making this harder for him. Maybe I should just let go. My phone buzzes. A reminder from the hospital to submit guardianship documents. For his own good. The phrase sticks in my throat. Dad turns back to the TV, lips moving with something I can't hear. I catch my reflection in the window and don't recognize the worry etched around my eyes. The next morning I'm back at records. Jordan is there, a nervous knot in her jaw, motioning me over while she pretends to staple papers. Look, real quick, she mutters. She slides a sticky note under my folder, eyes darting to the camera in the corner. The note is scrawled with 2 numbers, side by side. One matches the patient ID at the top of Dad's chart. The other is off by a digit. My heart thuds in my throat. This is wrong? I whisper. Jordan doesn't look up. Check page 3. Compare. She slides a pen toward me. Her hand shakes just enough that I see fear in her, too. I flip to the 3rd page, hands clammy. The second number belongs to a different patient, different birth date, address. Dad's chart, his diagnosis, could be someone else's. A knot of determination tightens in my chest. I shove the folder into my bag, adrenaline crackling under my skin. I finally have something. Something real, to fight with. Jordan nods, face pale. Don't let up, she whispers. I turn toward the hallway, pulse pounding, mind racing. 1 number off, a single digit. That's all it takes to change a life. I don't know if I should be more scared or more hopeful, but for the first time in days, I'm moving forward. The receptionist clicks her mouse, eyes flicking over her screen without urgency. The plastic smile never touches her voice. I'm sorry, but you're not listed as your father's legal guardian. Medical information is restricted. I stand there clutching my folder, knuckles white. The air is thick with disinfectant, and my jaw aches from clenching. He consented. You saw him sign the forms last week. My voice is too loud for the dim waiting room. She doesn't flinch. I'm afraid that's not enough for full records. Privacy laws. Her monitor glows blue-green, casting her face in a washed-out pallor. Each word grinds against something raw inside me. I picture Dad's file, locked away because I'm not enough, because forms matter more than truth. I want to shout, to tear the computer away, but I steady my breath. The moment stretches. Then what do you need? My throat feels like it's closing, but I won't leave. She shrugs, sliding a paper across the counter. You can file this request. Processing takes up to 10 business days. 10 days. Dad's life on a clock. I take the paper, pulse pounding, and walk out, fighting for control I don't feel. Outside, Frank stands by the curb, shoulders hunched like he's shrinking into his coat. He won't look at me when I approach. His hands are jammed deep in his pockets. I try to explain, the forms, the delay, everything. His jaw sets hard, eyes suddenly sharp. You're not telling me everything, he says. The words sting. My chest tightens, cold and brittle. I'm trying to help. You asked me. He shakes his head, voice low. Feels like you want to run my life. I can still think for myself, Maya. I open my mouth, helpless, but nothing comes out. He's never spoken to me like this. There's a crack I can't close, and I'm afraid it's getting wider. He starts walking away, slow and stubborn. I follow, but the air between us is jagged, and every step feels heavier than the last. My phone buzzes. Jordan's name lights up the screen. The hospital break room is hushed on his end, coffee machine hissing behind him. I found something, he whispers. The original log sheet for your dad's tests. There's a discrepancy with the sample numbers. My heart jumps. I lean against a cold brick wall, clutching the phone. I'm suddenly aware of how hard I'm shaking, a wild mix of hope and fear. Jordan, if you get caught. A pause. I know. But something's wrong, Maya. I can't ignore it. The risk hits me, sharp and real. He's putting everything on the line for this. Thank you, I say, voice unsteady, and I mean it. He breathes out, words soft. Meet me tonight. Don't tell anyone. I nod, even though he can't see me. Glancing back at the hospital's windows. How many secrets are locked up behind them? Inside my car, I riffle through the forms and notes, but my hands are too unsteady to read. There's a message in my inbox from admin. Guardianship paperwork, urgent, deadline approaching. I can't breathe properly. My chest feels like it might crack open. I picture Dad, slipping away legally while I scramble through red tape. There's a clock ticking somewhere I can't silence. I try to call the caseworker, but her voicemail picks up, cheerful and useless. The panic edges in. If I miss this, if I don't find proof, they might take away my say in his care. I tear through my bag for Dad's old insurance cards, receipts, anything to show what's real and what isn't. Pages scatter across the seat. Time is flowing faster, and I'm not sure I'll keep up. Night settles heavy as I meet Jordan in the empty hospital parking lot. The lot lights flicker overhead. His face is tense, eyes darting. He hands me a folder, just a plain manila thing, but it feels radioactive. There was another patient, same last name, admitted the same week as your dad. I flip through the papers, my hands are sweating. There's a page with highlighted lines, 2 francs, 2 charts, 1 test code swapped. My heart stutters. Jordan's voice is barely a whisper. Your dad's results were switched. The Alzheimer's diagnosis, it wasn't his. For a second, everything goes silent. The world tilts, just a little, my thoughts scramble to catch up. I look at Jordan, searching his face for some mistake, some catch. But the truth is written there, plain and undeniable, and for the first time in weeks, I let myself hope. But if that's true, someone else is living with the wrong answer. And I still have to convince them, before the deadline hits. The soles of my shoes squeaked on the tile as I rounded the corner to Dr. Lin's office. The folder pressed so hard in my fist the edges dug into my palm. His door was half open and he was hunched over his monitor, glasses perched low, tapping a pen against his desk. I didn't knock, I just stepped right in. He looked up, startled, the pen falling silent. I could feel my pulse knocking in my throat, adrenaline burning through my exhaustion. "We need to talk. Something's wrong with my dad's file." My voice came out sharp, but I didn't care. He blinked, then motioned stiffly to the chair. What are you referring to?" His tone was clipped, guarded. I dropped the folder in front of him, opened to the misfiled page. "Compare these numbers. Dates. That's not my dad's test. You told us he had Alzheimer's. But this isn't him." My nails bit into my palm as I watched him scan the papers, his brow furrowing deeper with every second. He exhaled, slow, the lines around his eyes tightening. "Let me see. Wait." He tapped the results, then flipped to the chart on his screen. His finger hovered. A pause stretched out between us, sharp as glass. I waited, caught between dread and a sick vindication. He closed his eyes, head sinking. "You're right," he said quietly. "This could be an error." Everything inside me shifted. Anger, hope, old fear mixing into something raw, electric. I didn't know what to do with the relief surging behind my ribcage. My hands trembled, restless with questions that couldn't wait. He cleared his throat, voice low. "We'll fix this. I promise." I wanted to believe him, but the ache in my jaw told me this wasn't over yet. The waiting room was a half-lit aquarium of uneasy faces. I sat beside Dad, the hospital bracelet loose on his wrist, his thumb tracing the plastic as if he could rub it away. My legs jittered every time a nurse walked by. A clock ticked somewhere behind me, each second dragging. The fluorescent lights painted everything this washed-out shade, leaving Dad's face pale, almost unfamiliar. He glanced at me, uncertain. "How long you think this'll take, kid?" I studied his profile, searching for the old steadiness. My mouth felt dry. "Not long. They're just double-checking. Routine." The lie tasted bitter. He nodded, jaw working, like he wanted to say more. Instead, he rubbed his knees and looked away. I fidgeted with my phone, scrolling mindlessly, pretending not to watch the nurse behind the glass window, her mouth pressed into a line as she organized vials. Every time she looked up, my stomach knotted tighter. The heavy doors finally slid open. A tech in blue scrubs called Dad's name. My heart climbed into my throat as I helped him stand, his fingers briefly squeezing mine. Everything felt fragile, each minute, each breath, as if the universe could split open again at any moment. I sat, alone now, time trickling painfully slow. The dread in my chest pressed down until I thought I'd splinter. I caught myself holding my breath, afraid to hope, afraid not to. A nurse emerged with a file clutched to her chest, eyes searching for me. The hallway seemed to tilt as she stepped closer, a hesitant smile flickering. "Ms. Patel? Dr. Lin wants to see you." My legs nearly buckled as I followed her back. The office felt colder this time, air sharp with that chemical tang. Dr. Lin gestured to the chair. He slid a new printout across. "The repeat tests are back. Mild cognitive impairment, no markers for Alzheimer's." "You were right." My vision blurred, every muscle in my body unraveling at once. I pressed my hands to my face, hot tears leaking through my fingers. For a second, I was weightless, floating in the dizzy aftermath of fear. Dad's voice was faint, as if through water. "You okay there, Maya?" I couldn't speak. I laughed, a wild hiccup of relief. I nodded, unable to stop crying, a storm breaking loose after too many weeks pretending to be weatherproof. The room settled around me, quieter, softer. I wiped my face, breath catching. Dr. Lin was saying something, apologies, explanations, but all I heard was the clean, bright possibility that had cracked open in front of us. I found Dad afterward in the hallway, sitting with his hands folded, staring at the floor. When I knelt beside him, he looked up, eyes red-rimmed but clear. "Hey," I said, voice rough. "It's not Alzheimer's. It's just mild, Dad. We can work with this." He let out a sound somewhere between a sigh and a laugh, shaky at the edges. "Guess I'm not going anywhere yet, huh?" My hand found his. It felt like something small and stubborn flickered to life. Hope, maybe, or just the old closeness that had felt so far away. He squeezed my fingers, knuckles white. "Did I scare you?" His voice broke. "Yeah," I whispered. "You did." We sat like that for a while, the world outside blurring through the windows, hospital noises fading into the background. A new weight settled quietly between us, not the crushing kind, but the kind that grounds you. I realized, as I watched him trace the grooves of my hand, that everything we'd lost in the shadows of this diagnosis wasn't gone, not really. Some things could be found again, piece by piece. And as we stood to leave, his gait cautious but steady, I caught the faintest hint of a smile. There was paperwork left to fix, and worry pressed in close, but for the first time in months, I felt something lighter, a cautious trust that maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild. As we stepped out into the pale afternoon light, I found myself wondering what else was hidden in all the files and forms, what else we'd missed, or might still find, just waiting for the right question. Dad's voice carries down the hallway, low but steady, asking Maya if she's seen his green folder. I paused by the kitchen door, watching him sort through the mail with hands that don't tremble. The morning light casts a pale circle over his face. I feel my chest loosen, just a little, seeing the old confidence return to his posture. Maya answers, "It's on the table, Dad," not missing a beat as she flips open her laptop, already drafting another email to the hospital's patient advocate. The clack of her keys is sharper than usual. I catch the faintest trace of exhaustion in her eyes, but also something new, determination, maybe. Inside my head, the last few weeks tumble like a mess of papers. Forms, misfiled reports, a signature on the wrong line. My jaw aches from clenching, but the bitter taste of helplessness is fading. We know the system's cracks now. We know to double-check, to push back, to never let one diagnosis define a life. Dad chuckles, clearing his throat. "Think I'll take a walk before lunch. That's still allowed, right?" His voice is lighter, but a shadow lingers. I watch them both, aware that trust, once shaken, never settles quite the same.
The bell's echo still vibrated in the halls when I slipped my mug under the staff room's ancient coffee machine. Acrid steam rose, stinging my eyes awake as I scrolled through my phone. Jamal's mom had emailed about homework, nothing urgent. In the corridor, Mr. Stein was already barking about tardy slips, his voice bouncing off tiled walls. My lesson plans were stacked, color-coded, ready. Jamal would need extra time on the writing prompt, as always, and Teresa would remind me how much she hated decimals. I glanced at the clock, 7:53. The day felt as ordinary as oatmeal. The front desk line buzzed on my phone, a low, deliberate tone. I answered, expecting a lost lunchbox. Instead, "Maya, please come to the main office. Now." Ms. Garrett didn't sound hurried or frazzled, she sounded careful. My throat dried instantly. I left my mug behind, barely registering its heat in my palm. The walk from the lounge to the office felt longer than usual, like the floors had stretched. My mind scrambled for answers I didn't have. When I pushed open the glass door, a crisp envelope with my name waited on the counter. I tore it open with shaking fingers. The words, "suspended, pending investigation," sucked the air out of my lungs. My vision narrowed until all I could see was the single, blocky font of my name. I heard my own breath, short, fast, and wildly out of place next to the easy hum of morning announcements. I couldn't move. The world was perfectly ordinary, except me, stuck and suddenly on trial. Footsteps clicked across the linoleum, echoing with a precision that made everything colder. Principal Larkin stood in the doorway, suit perfectly pressed, lips pursed so tight I could barely read her. She didn't wave me in. "Ms. Patel, please sit." I did, feeling the plastic chair flex under my weight. On the desk sat a manila folder, and she slid it toward me like a line in the sand. She barely looked at me as she spoke. "There's evidence you falsified the attendance records for your homeroom on March 14th. My mind fumbled for what to say, but my voice just came out thin. "I didn't." She cut me off. "The district takes these matters seriously." I watched her hands, steady, unblinking, while mine curled against my knees. Every word pressed, clinical, as though I was already guilty. I felt my chest tighten, like I'd swallowed a needle. No one else in the room, no one from my department. Just Larkin and the quiet click of her pen. The only other presence was Raf, my union rep, called in from his planning period and looking as uneasy as I felt. He glanced at me before speaking, voice almost a whisper. "We'll review the documentation and respond accordingly." It was meant to sound reassuring, but his eyes darted away from mine too quickly. I wanted him to say it was a mistake, some crossed wire. He only handed me the printed accusation, the union logo stamped in the corner like a seal on a sentence. I tucked my hands under my thighs to keep them from shaking, fighting down a desperate urge to defend myself, to just be heard. The room shrank around me, every light too bright. I realized I was suddenly, completely alone. When they dismissed me, Raf trailed behind in the hall. He kept his voice low. Look, Maya, don't talk to anyone about this yet. Not until we know what's in the file. I tried to nod, but my head felt numb, light and heavy all at once. My name echoed in my ears, each syllable twisted, unfamiliar, as if it already belonged to someone else. I pushed through the heavy doors and into the computer lab, the only place where I could breathe without being seen. I logged into the attendance system, my hands trembling so hard my password took 3 tries. There it was, March 14th. An edit on Jamal's record, marked, present, at 7:26 p.m. My official hours ended at 4. A cold wave ran down my arms. I stared at the timestamp, willing it to make sense. Someone, somewhere, had clicked that box after the sun was down, when the building was locked and I was home eating leftovers. I printed the page, ink still warm, and strode back to the office. Principal Larkin barely turned to face me. You made the change, she said, tapping the log. You told Ms. Garrett at dismissal you'd handle it later. Her eyes glinted, sharp with certainty. My mouth opened, but nothing came out except, I never said that. The words sounded lost. She only shook her head, as if dismissing a bothersome fly. We'll let HR sort it out. You can see yourself out, Ms. Patel. The conversation snapped closed on me like a trap. I walked out, but my mind stayed stuck on that line. Why would she claim I gave permission? I drifted outside, the sun low and icy, making every edge too bright. I barely noticed the parents waiting by the curb until Elena, Jamal's mother, caught my arm. She looked tired, relief flickering across her face. I'm glad Jamal wasn't flagged. He'd have lost his spot in the STEM program. They're watching every attendance slip now. Her words were soft, but her eyes darted to the main office window. A chill prickled up my arms, sharper than the cold. Her voice dropped. You know, they're under pressure. Too many absences, the district cuts funding. They need someone to blame, Maya. I'm just glad it's not my son. Her fingers squeezed my hand, not unkind, but urgent. I watched her walk away, my mind spinning on her words. I wanted to forget the implication, but it burrowed under my skin. This wasn't just about a spreadsheet. Maybe it never was. I stood alone at the curb, clutching the printout while the bell rang for 7th period, wondering whose story the records would tell. Raf's text vibrated the phone in my palm before I'd even gotten my coat off. Maya, they're meeting. Now. I didn't bother knocking. I just barged into the cramped union office, the air inside thick with microwave popcorn. Raf's face was pinched, glasses pushed up high, lips drawn in a line. He slid his laptop toward me, screen aglow with an email chain littered with administrator signatures. They're escalating, he murmured, voice flat. Funding audit in 3 weeks. They're looking for a scapegoat. My pulse thudded. So that's why they care about one absence mark. Raf nodded, not meeting my eyes. They need to show the numbers line up. If even one kid's attendance is off, the funding drops. You're easiest. The room pressed in smaller. I set my jaw, voice rough. They know I wouldn't just. Raf cut me off, gentle but urgent. You've got to prove it wasn't you, Maya. Fast. Get anything. Emails, timestamps, anything they can't spin. Microwave popcorn and stale stress clung to my clothes as I left, but something sharp was burning under my ribs. Anxiety, yes, but something like anger, too. I kept replaying Raf's words, the way he wouldn't quite look at me. Somewhere, buried in the mess of digital records, there had to be something they couldn't twist out of shape. The first spreadsheet was a maze. Colored cells, initials, little pop-up comments that jumped when I moused over them. I clicked to the History tab, hunting for the timestamp on Jamal's absence. My own edits glowed in green. But a single entry, Jamal S., 4th period, had no author tag. No color. Nothing. I scrolled further, pulse ticking, and found a meeting invite from the day before, one I'd never seen. Student services. Attendance anomalies. My inbox search jerked out half a dozen emails I didn't remember receiving, some with attachments I couldn't open. The loading wheel spun, mockingly slow. I pressed my fists into my temples, narrowing my eyes. There were gaps. Digital records that didn't line up, invitations I'd never clicked. I wasn't crazy. I opened the spreadsheet's version history, the colors blurring as I clicked through. Everything pointed to someone changing something after hours. A sense of determination settled, heavier than fear, as I copied links and dropped screenshots into a folder. If they wanted a paper trail, I'd give them one. Late that night, hunched at the kitchen table, my finger hovered over the next unread email. The subject was bland. Jamal S. attendance clarification. I opened it. It was from Ms. Heller, the counselor. Sent to Principal Dubois. If we recode Jamal's absence to excused, we can avoid another flag for chronic absenteeism. Please advise if this can be handled quietly. My throat went tight. The email was dated the morning after the spreadsheet edit. So the plan was to recode him quietly. Not for accuracy, but to make the school look cleaner on paper. A prickling unease worked its way up my spine. They weren't punishing me for making a mistake. They needed a name to clear themselves, and I was the convenient one. I stared at the screen, trying to parse what I could possibly do with this. I tapped a message to the admin office, formally, politely, my hands trembling. Could I review the security footage for 4th period, March 16th, for my attendance defense? The reply came before lunch. Footage attached, as requested. I clicked. The video buffer loaded, grainy gray halls, the clock in the corner ticking through the empty corridor. Then, a hard cut. 12:05 to 1:10, missing. The exact period the spreadsheet was changed. I played it back, squinting at every flicker. The rest of the day was there. Just not that hour. My frustration surged, jaw aching from how tightly I was clenching it. The cursor pulsed at the bottom of my screen, waiting for my next move, as if it could sense how close I was to something real, something they would rather I never found. I closed the laptop, hands shaking, and promised myself I'd dig deeper tomorrow. There was no way I was letting them erase me out of my own story. Alina's voice was barely above a whisper as she glanced around the empty classroom, tracing the grooves on the desk with her thumbnail. I couldn't say anything, Maya, she murmured, breath hitching. If I argued about Jamal being marked absent, I was told people like us shouldn't make noise. Something twisted in my chest. Her hands trembled as she spoke, knuckles pale, eyes not quite meeting mine. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, their cold brightness making the room feel raw and exposed. I wanted to reach across the desk, bridge the gulf of fear that had kept her silent. Shame pricked at me, mixed with an ache I didn't know how to name. The system that was crushing me had already squeezed her into terrified compliance. She looked up, wiping at her eyes. I thought if I just kept quiet, he'd be safe. They said social services could be called. The word hung in the air, heavy as lead. I realized, with a hollow certainty, that my fight was never just about me. I squeezed her hand. You don't have to talk to them alone ever again. But there was a quiver in my voice I couldn't hide, a question in the air about whether either of us had any power at all. The staff lounge was quieter than usual, but not empty enough for privacy. Raph hovered just inside the doorway, his phone pressed to his ear, voice low and clipped. I caught only fragments. Not what we agreed, legal exposure, protocol. My stomach clenched as I waited, the bitter taste of old coffee lingering on my tongue. He ended the call with a heavy sigh, pinching the bridge of his nose. They're not giving us anything more, he said. District's lawyer is running interference. Every request, they stall or send us in circles. My fingers curled around a chipped mug, knuckles tight. They want us to give up. His eyes darted to the window, jaw set. That's exactly it. They want to outlast you. He looked at me then, and for a moment, we were just two people caught in a machinery too big to see the edges of. I forced myself to nod, swallowing the sense of futility pressing in from all sides. The secretary handed me a flash drive, her face blank, eyes flickering away too fast. I found an empty classroom and plugged it in, the screen throwing a pale blue cast across my face as I opened the files. The first video loaded, a wide shot of the hallway, timestamp flickering. I watched the same stretch of linoleum repeat, then stutter, the overhead clock jumping by 17 minutes. My pulse quickened, too neat a skip. I scrolled, looking for Jamal in the crowd, searching for my own blurred outline. Another video. This one panned a little too smoothly, as if someone had edited out the jagged transitions. There was a missing stretch right when I should have been bringing Jamal back to class. I leaned in, breath shallow, searching pixel by pixel. Every gap was a door, and behind each one was a hint of the truth I was desperate to find. Why did the evidence feel so carefully managed? A knock startled me. I spun around in the chair, heart thumping. It was Dennis from IT, hovering in the doorway, hands buried in his pockets. He stepped in, glanced at the screen, then at the closed door. You didn't get this from me, he muttered, barely moving his lips. But, there are back-end logs. Raw camera feeds, not in the official files. My breath caught. I tried to keep my face neutral, but hope fizzed in my chest, fragile and wild. You mean, there's more footage? He nodded, eyes darting to the hall. Ask for the mirror logs. Or, just check the server yourself. I'd hurry. He slipped out before I could thank him. My hands shook as I ejected the drive. For the first time in days, the air felt lighter, full of possibility. Maybe the answers weren't erased after all. The hallways felt different now. Every conversation seemed to hush as I passed, eyes flicking up then away. Even my homeroom felt colder, desks a little more distant. A few students lingered after class, but our jokes landed flat, as if they'd forgotten we used to laugh together. I caught my own reflection in the window, shoulders hunched, jaw clenched tight. Every whisper in the office, every averted glance in the faculty meeting, built a wall higher than the district could ever put in writing. I sat at my desk long after the bell, staring at the blinking cursor in an unfinished email. What if fighting made things worse? What if this was all people remembered about me? A knock at the door pulled me from my spiral. It was Raf, his expression worn but determined. "If you want out," he said quietly, "I'll back you. But if you want to keep going, you're not alone." I nodded, a lump rising in my throat. I realized then that giving up wouldn't make the silence go away. It would just mean I'd stopped being heard. But as I stood up, phone buzzing in my pocket, a new email notification flashed onto the screen, from District HR, subject, further inquiry. My pulse skittered. Whatever I did next, nothing would be the same. The chair's gavel hits the table, sharper than I expect. My throat tightens. The hearing room is small, too warm, walls crowded with posted regulations and laminated district charts. A low hum of voices settles as the superintendent leans forward. "Let's begin with the official attendance report," she says, sliding her laptop so the screen faces all of us. My name, bolded, highlighted, sits beside the word, unauthorized. There's an email chain open. My address above a block of text authorizing the change. The district's lawyer stands, smooth voice threading through the fluorescent light. The memo in question was received at 9:02 p.m., granting Ms. Patel access. We have digital signatures. I glance at Raf. He's pale, jaw tight. My hands press hard into the edge of the chair. That email is fake. I know it, I've never sent it. But the file looks exact, carries my sign-off, time-stamped. The lawyer's gaze needles into me. "Ms. Patel, did you send this communication?" I force my voice steady. "No, that's not mine. May I show something?" My heart jumps as the chair nods. Raf leans in, voice barely above a whisper. "You ready?" I nod. He slides a printout across the table, our own spreadsheet, flagged with version histories. "Look here," I say, pointing at the highlighted cell, "and this. See who made the change, and when." It wasn't me. My voice cracks on that last word, but it's out. They don't look convinced. I can feel the heat of their skepticism, pressing in, as I wait for their next move. The tech, Marisol, steps from the back of the room, clutching a laptop. Her badge dangles at her throat. "I have the cache files," she says, voice quick, a little breathless. "There's a log from the database, full version control." She plugs in, tapping keys with a confidence I envy. The feed appears on the big screen. Rows of code, timestamps, admin login IDs. It's silent except for the tap of her nails. There, she highlights a line. 10:47 p.m., admin access, Principal Alvarez's ID. I feel my shoulders rise, pulse tripping over itself. That's the edit that replaced the attendance entry for Jamal Thomas. The district lawyer leans in, face unreadable. "You're sure?" Marisol nods. "It can't be faked. These database logs are built for non-repudiation. Ms. Patel's credentials aren't here, not once." The chair frowns, slow, considering. I see Raf's hand clench on his pen, my chest loosens, just a little. The truth is right there, flickering on the screen. For a moment, the pressure lifts, just enough to breathe. A new file appears on the projector, pixelated at first, then sharpening. Marisol explains, "This is CCTV from the arts building across the quad. The cameras face the admin door. Time: 10:40 p.m., the night in question." I spot the empty hallway, flickering in black and white. Then, the principal's shape, moving with purpose. He fumbles with keys, glances behind him, disappears into the office. Someone at the table murmurs, "Is that?" A few seconds later, nothing. No Jamal, no other students. The feed rolls forward, still no one. Just the principal, leaving 15 minutes later, locking up. A cold ripple starts behind my ribs. Hearing is one thing, watching it is another. The room is so silent, I hear the hum of the old projector, the soft buzz of fluorescent bulbs overhead. Marisol clicks off the video. Jamal was never there, only one person accessed the office. She says it like a verdict. I press a hand to the table, steadying myself. Even with the evidence, a strange hollowness opens inside me. The superintendent leans back, folding her hands. Her voice is measured, clipped. Given these revelations, the district is dropping the charges against Ms. Patel. An internal investigation will begin regarding the principal's conduct, effective immediately. Somewhere to my left, someone starts to clap, awkward, then building. Raf grins, relief breaking through for the first time in weeks. I try to smile back. Applause fills the small room, echoing off the walls, bouncing back at me. But the sound feels strangely distant. My hands are trembling, not from relief, but from something colder, a kind of grief for how easily this could have ended differently. For how broken the system must be, if it took all this just to be believed. I catch Raf's eye, and he mouths, "You did it." But inside, I wonder what would have happened if Marisol hadn't checked the logs, if we hadn't found the camera, if anyone had been a little less stubborn. The applause fades, replaced by the scrape of chairs and low, tired voices. As I gather my things, the superintendent approaches quietly. "We'll be in touch, Maya." Her face is unreadable. The hallway outside is empty, cold, a little too quiet. I glance back at the closed door, wondering what else is hidden behind all those screens and spreadsheets, waiting for someone to notice. Raf's voice was gentle as he handed me the cardboard box with my name scrawled in marker. The hall was almost empty, echoing with the hum of fluorescent lights. My hand curled around the handle, cold sweat slick against the plastic, as I tried to picture myself anywhere else but here. The knot in my stomach tightened every time I glanced at the closed office door, the same one where everything unraveled. "Are you really leaving?" Raf asked softly, his gaze darting away. I hesitated, the weight of the box grounding me. The thought of starting over somewhere no one knew my name was oddly tempting, but the faces of students flickered through my mind. Jenna, who stayed late after class. Malik, who struggled but kept coming back. The spreadsheet, the footage, the emails, they'd forced me to fight, and I wasn't sure if I'd ever want to again. Raf squeezed my shoulder. "You know, what you did, it's going to change things. For all of us." His words hung there, stubborn and fragile. I wondered if they were true, or just something people said when they didn't know what else to offer. I stepped outside, the air sharp and real. It was over, at least for now. There's something brittle about trust, I thought, watching the leaves skitter along the pavement. You can build it for years, and a single cell in a spreadsheet can shatter everything. I remembered the shaking in my hands as I scrolled through emails, the impossible logic of systems built to catch you failing. But I'd drawn my own line, somewhere between silence and survival. The ache was still there, but it wasn't as sharp. Maybe I couldn't fix the institution, or protect myself from every lie, but I could decide who I'd believe next time, and who I'd fight for. As I turned the corner, a flash of movement caught my eye, a student waving, hesitant. I hesitated too, not sure what to do with that small, unexpected hope. The clock above the vice principal's door ticked in a slow, hollow rhythm as I waited, palms pressed flat to my knees, the rhythm echoing through my ribs. I tried to focus on the hum of the old fluorescent lights, but my mind kept returning to the spreadsheet, to the single cell with its red-washed highlight, the one that had upended everything. I could picture it exactly, cell F27, attendance marked, present, for a student who was not. The error that had snowballed, the reason I was here. My mouth tasted dry, metallic, and I kept swallowing, as if that might clear the heaviness lodged in my throat. Muffled voices floated from the other side of the door, clipped, deliberate, full of that weighty administrative tension. I caught my name once, twice, my chest tightened. I wanted to knock, to press for answers, but fear held me steady, glued to the plastic seat. A motion beside me, Ms. Patel, the union rep, arrived, her heels soft on the linoleum. She sat down with a small nod, lips pressed thin. She didn't speak, just placed her folder in her lap and met my eyes with a kind of practiced empathy. I managed a whisper. "Do you think they're going to fire me?" My voice sounded foreign, like it belonged to someone else. She glanced at the office door, then back to me. "We'll hear them out first," she said, keeping everything measured. "Don't get ahead of yourself." Her calm did nothing for the cold sweat collecting beneath my shirt. I wondered if she could see the tremor in my hand, the way my knee bounced under the edge of the chair. The door opened with a creak loud enough to make us both flinch. Mr. Ortega, tall and rumpled, gestured. "We're ready for you," he said. No warmth, not even a flicker. My legs felt heavy as I stood. I followed Ms. Patel into the office, the walls lined with awards, framed mission statements, the air stale with institutional lemon cleaner. I couldn't meet the principal's gaze. They motioned for me to sit. My chair was slightly off-center. I noticed, irrationally, how I had to scoot it closer, the scrape of the feet too loud in the hush. Mr. Ortega cleared his throat, and Ms. Jennings, the principal, opened a manila folder. Her nails tapped once, twice, a staccato beat. "We're here to discuss a serious breach in protocol," she said, voice clipped, almost rehearsed. The attendance record for March 16th. The mention of the date sent a fresh rush of heat through my face. My mind sprinted back. What was I doing that day? Had I really marked the student present? I pressed my lips together to keep from blurting out something desperate. She slid a printout across the desk, the spreadsheet, already familiar and alien at once. "Can you explain this entry?" she asked, her tone edged with suspicion. I stared at the paper, the red cell burning up at me like an accusation. My throat closed. I forced words out, barely above a whisper. I don't remember marking Kelsey present. Maybe I clicked it by accident. I stopped. They were both watching me, eyes flat, waiting. Ortega interrupted. "It's not just this one," he said, sliding a second sheet forward. "We found 3 more discrepancies this month alone. Each one correlates to high-need students, marked present when they were absent. That impacts our funding application." A drop of sweat slid down my spine. My stomach twisted. 3 more? I tried to picture the days, no memory, just a blur of routine, exhaustion. Guilt crawled under my skin, even though I knew I didn't do this on purpose. Ms. Patel leaned in, voice firm but quiet. "Are you suggesting this was intentional?" Jennings's lips thinned. "We're not suggesting, we're investigating. But the pattern is concerning. The district is demanding a response." I swallowed, searching for something, anything, to anchor myself. Could it be a software glitch? Sometimes the attendance page loads slowly, or the autofill. My words sounded weak, grasping. IT checked. "No glitches," Ortega said. He didn't look at me. "We have to take this seriously." My pulse thudded, loud in my ears. I felt myself drifting, like I was watching through glass. They thought I was cheating the system for money. The absurdity made my hands go numb. Why would I risk my job over attendance? I said, barely audible. Jennings's gaze didn't soften. "We're not here to debate motive. We're here to establish facts." A bitter laugh wanted to rise, but I swallowed it. The facts, whatever they meant by that, didn't seem to include me. They showed printouts, flagged emails asking about attendance, notes from a para-educator mentioning absences. Each artifact stacked up, a paper fortress between me and any hope of understanding. Ms. Patel spoke again, matter of fact. "My client has no disciplinary record. She's one of your highest-rated teachers. You know this." A tiny spark flared in me. For a second, I remembered the cards from students, the long evenings grading, the way Kelsey's mother had hugged me at conferences. It all felt so far away now. Jennings nodded, slow but unmoved. "We have to follow procedure. There will be a formal review." My head buzzed. The word, review, lingered in the air, heavy and indefinite. I tried to steady my breathing, counted in, counted out, caught on a smell of burnt coffee somewhere behind the desk. They dismissed us. Ms. Patel rose first, and I followed, legs trembling. The corridor was empty, echoing. My steps sounded unsteady, the floor sloping underfoot. She stopped me outside the office. "Don't talk to anyone until I say," she said. "We'll need copies of the full digital records. Everything. That means emails, logs, and maybe CCTV. CCTV. The idea made my skin crawl. I pictured myself at my desk, caught on some grainy footage, every tiny mistake frozen and replayed. I nodded, not trusting my voice. My whole body felt taut, like a wire ready to snap. I fished my phone from my bag, hands shaking. I typed a message to David, deleted it, started again. Settled for. Meeting was bad. Call later? The hallway felt colder, the old windows rattling in the wind. I looked around, half expecting to see eyes peering from around corners, but the school was eerily empty in the late afternoon. As I left the building, my phone buzzed with a new email. Subject: immediate action required, attendance investigation. My name was in the first line, formal and final. I opened the email, standing on the cracked concrete steps, backpack slipping from my shoulder. Legalese swam in front of my eyes, suspension pending investigation. Return your keys. My chest cinched. The world grew sharper, colder, the sound of distant cars suddenly too loud. I wanted to scream, but all I could do was breathe, deliberate and shaky. I walked to my car, sitting behind the wheel in silence. The dashboard clock blinked, relentless. Everything I'd built was on pause, possibly ruined, because of a box ticked wrong. I leaned my forehead against the steering wheel, the vinyl hot from the afternoon sun. I tried to remember what day it was, but my mind was blank, as if the last week had been erased. Another message popped up. Ms. Patel, concise. Don't respond to any emails. I'll call soon. We can request the full server logs. Server logs. I'd never paid attention to them before. Now they felt like a lifeline, some hidden thread that might clear my name. I stared out at the empty lot, remembering the first morning I'd parked here, heart full of hope. Now I felt hollow, brittle. I wondered if I'd ever walk back through those doors. At home, I dropped my bag by the couch and sat on the floor, back pressed to the coffee table. The living room looked unfamiliar, as if I'd broken some unwritten rule by bringing this into the space. I scrolled through my own email, searching for anything that might help. My eyes stung, the screen blurring. A dozen replies about attendance, none of them unusual. Then I saw it. A message from the office secretary, sent at 7:47 a.m. on March 16. System was slow again. Let me know if you need a manual update. I held my breath, reading it twice. Proof? Or just more confusion? My phone rang. David's name glowed on the display. I answered, trying to keep my voice steady. He was quiet for a moment. Then, "Are you okay?" I laughed, brittle. "Does it sound like I'm okay?" He didn't answer at first. I imagined him pacing the kitchen, hand pressed to his mouth. "What do you need me to do?" The question made something loosen in my chest. "I don't know. Just stay on the line?" We sat in silence, the kind only two scared people can share. I listened to his breathing, tried to steady mine. Eventually, I found words. "If they think I did this on purpose, it's over. Everything. Then prove you didn't," he said softly. The words hung between us, simple and impossible. I opened the attendance spreadsheet again, scrolling through the cells, desperate to see what they saw. My eyes caught a pattern. Every error was during first period, the same block when the system usually lagged. I screenshotted the timestamps, copied the secretary's email. A flicker of hope, tiny, fragile, stirred in my chest. My computer chimed with another message, this one from IT, attaching the login logs for my account. I scanned the file, heart pounding. My login time, 8:06 a.m. attendance marked for Kelsey, 8:10. Kelsey's mom had emailed at 8:15 to say she'd be out sick. Why would I mark her present if I knew she was out? The logic was missing unless I'd made the error before the absence was official. A knock at the door startled me. I jumped, heartbeat skittering, then realized it was just a delivery, packages left at the stoop. Still, the moment lingered, my nerves taut as piano wire. That night, I barely slept. Each time I closed my eyes, the red cell from the spreadsheet hovered in the darkness. I replayed the meeting, the suspicion in Ortega's eyes, the way Ms. Patel's hand shook only slightly as she took notes. The next morning, Ms. Patel emailed, "Send me everything. I'll ask for the CCTV from your classroom during those periods." I hesitated before attaching the files, fingers hovering over the keyboard. What would the footage show? Me distracted, checking the roster, maybe looking away at the wrong moment. Part of me dreaded what might be revealed, but I clicked send anyway, the whoosh of the email leaving my outbox final and irreversible. Later that afternoon, she called. "There's something odd in the logs," she said. "IT flagged a period of system latency. And the CCTV shows you at your desk, but also helping a student at the board during part of first period." Relief warred with new anxiety. "So I couldn't have been at the computer the whole time," I said. "Exactly," she replied. "It supports your story." I let the breath out slow, almost afraid to hope. "Do you think it will be enough?" A pause. "I think it's a start." I thanked her, but after the call, I sat in the quiet, the weight not quite lifted. The evidence was bending my way, but the process moved like molasses. Each day that followed was a loop. Calls from Ms. Patel, updates on the investigation, messages from worried colleagues that I ignored. I stopped checking my work email. I stopped going to the grocery store during school hours, nervous I'd run into parents. On a gray Thursday, Ms. Patel messaged, "District review scheduled tomorrow. They have all the files. I'll call after." I sat at my kitchen table, watching rain streak the window, heart pounding in my throat. I imagined walking into that room, every eye on me, my life lined up in rows and columns, numbers, timestamps, faces blurred on CCTV. That night, David made dinner, setting a plate on the table in silence. I picked at the food, appetite gone. He reached for my hand, squeezing it. No words, just pressure. I wanted to tell him I was scared, but it felt redundant. He already knew. In bed, I stared at the ceiling, replaying every moment, every click, every second I could remember. I wondered where the line was, between a mistake and a crime, between trust and suspicion. Would they see me as a person, or just a liability? The district review came in a cold, windowless room, the air thick with anticipation and the sour tang of too much coffee. The panel stared from behind laptops, faces unreadable. Ms. Patel presented the logs, the emails, the CCTV. She spoke in measured, legal tones, laying out the case, system delays, conflicting timestamps, proof I was elsewhere. A man from IT confirmed the latency issues. His voice was flat, but his words built the scaffolding of my defense. Jennings questioned me, her voice clipped. Why didn't you double-check the attendance at the end of the period? My hand trembled on the tabletop. Sometimes there isn't time, I said. The bell rings, students have questions. I try to check, but it's not always possible. She nodded, but her eyes didn't soften. I wondered if anything would ever be enough. The deliberation felt endless. I sat outside the door, heart in my throat, listening to the muffled cadence of their voices. Eventually, Ms. Patel emerged. Her face was serious, but not bleak. They'll decide tonight, she said. Go home. Rest. Rest. The word felt like a joke, but I nodded anyway, moving through the parking lot as if underwater. At home, I paced the living room, the hours stretching. David tried to distract me with bad sitcoms, his laughter tight, forced. The call came just before midnight. Ms. Patel's voice was steady. They found in your favor. You're cleared. There's a written warning for not double-checking, but your job is safe. The tension snapped all at once. I dropped to the couch, breathless. Relief flooded through me, sharp and overwhelming. But as the relief ebbed, a new emptiness remained. I realized I would never look at the job, or myself, the same way again. I lay awake, staring at the slowly lightening sky, wondering what would be waiting when I walked those halls again. Sophia bursts into the kitchen and slams the thick envelope against my palm, her cheeks pink and eyes wide. The morning sun hits her hair just right, turning it into this wild halo. She bounces on her toes, waiting for me to rip it open. My hands shake, but I play it off, laughing. Should I read it or do you want the honors? She snatches it back, tears the top, and gasps when she sees the college letterhead. I hear her breath catch, then a shriek, half laugh, half sob, and she throws herself into me. I hold her tighter than I have in years. The smell of her shampoo, the way she talks so fast her words trip over each other. I catch fragments. They want me, Mom. They actually want me. My heart feels like it's swelling, too big for my chest. Every single late night, every breakdown over grades, all those impossible deadlines, suddenly, it's all worth it. I smooth her hair and see her eyes bright with possibility. We talk about dorm rooms, scholarships, her future, all spilling out in a jumble while the kettle squeals in the background, forgotten. For once, the world feels open and soft. I don't even notice the phone buzzing on the counter. In that perfect moment, I don't see anything coming. The next day, I'm scrolling through my email while stirring oatmeal, sticky spoon in hand. Sophia's college portal still open on my laptop next to me. My inbox dings with a subject line that knocks the breath out of me. Final notice. Financial aid ineligible, outstanding loan balance. I freeze. I click the message, squinting hard. The words blur. Existing federal loans in applicant's name. My mouth goes dry. Sophia walks in, yawning, rubbing her eyes. Mom, what's wrong? She asks. All I manage is, have you ever taken out a loan? She laughs, half asleep. What? No, of course not. I show her the screen. Her face drains. That's not me. I swear, that's not. Why is that there? My hands feel numb around the spoon. Something is wrong, deeply, deeply wrong. I open her student aid account. There it is, a loan disbursement, months ago, somehow signed off with her name. Another loan, and then another. My ears ring. Sophia stands behind me, gripping my shoulder. That's not mine. I don't even know that lender. I can barely breathe. I scroll further, more accounts, all with her info, all maxed out. My stomach twists. Who did this? She whispers, and I have no answer. Panic tightens my throat, but I have to keep going. Every new page brings another blow. I check her credit report. There are addresses we don't recognize, phone numbers we've never used, balances owed in cities we've never set foot in. My mind scrambles back through the last year. Did I miss something? Letters we tossed, calls we ignored? I can't find any explanation that makes sense. Sophia's hands are icy on my arm. Can't we just fix it? Can they just erase it? Her voice cracks. I want to fix it, to erase it all for her, but I don't know where to start. I feel the ground shifting under me, like nothing is safe anymore, not even her name. A new email pings. Subject: action required, decision deadline approaching. I glance at the date. 4 days. Just 4 days to clear her record, prove her innocence, and somehow restore her dream of starting college. I run through numbers, scenarios, call the bank, freeze the accounts, contact the school, file police reports, all before the cutoff. Sophia rocks silently beside me, eyes red. Will this ruin it? She asks, barely audible. All I can say is, I won't let it. But my words feel thin. The air between us vibrates with fear and desperation. I keep seeing the countdown clock in my head, ticking faster and faster. I don't know how, but I have to make this right. A mechanical voice on the other end of the line tells me to press 2 for English. My finger hovers, numb, as the tinny hold music starts up again. Sophia sits slumped on the living room rug, knees drawn tight to her chest, her phone screen glowing in her lap. Her hair veils her face. My free hand digs into my thigh, the sharp pressure the only thing grounding me while some faceless representative at National Bank shuffles my call. I can barely breathe. I try to steady my voice as a bored-sounding woman finally answers, asking for Sophia's information. I spell her name, her birthday, my own, then stumble when she says, "Sorry, I can't discuss that account with you unless your daughter is present." My palm sweats around the phone. Sophia glances at me, eyes huge, cheeks splotchy, lips bitten raw. I put her on speaker, make Sophia recite her social, try not to sound too desperate. We need to dispute these charges. She's a minor, she never opened this. The representative sighs. All disputes must be initiated in writing. I can't access that from here. Is there anything else? Each word lands like a trapdoor shutting. Sophia's mouth moves but no sound comes out. She curls tighter, tears leaving trails on her arms. I drop the phone onto the couch. The hold music starts again, cheery and tinny, as if mocking us. For the first time, I wonder if we're already too late. I open my laptop and fire off emails, the fluorescent light flickering above me. My chest tightens at the thought of the deadline, college decisions, financial aid packages, all of it hanging by a thread. The college admissions portal refreshes. A new message blinks red, action required. My breath catches. I click. The screen fills with a name, Renee Cho, Director of Admissions. Her number sits below a canned rejection, unable to process financial aid. Credit check failed. I dial her office, my voice hoarse when she answers. "Ms. Cho, please. There's been a mistake. My daughter's identity was stolen. We're working to fix it. Can you give us more time?" A brief, weighted silence. "I'm so sorry. The system flags incomplete or unverifiable aid applications. We're bound by federal deadlines. The best I can do is note your appeal." Her tone is gentle, but each word chips away at hope. I try to keep my voice steady. She's worked so hard. There must be something. A sigh, static hissing in the line. "If you can get documentation, even a police report, within 72 hours, we might be able to review her case. But I can't promise." I scribble the words on a notepad, my hand shaking. Sophia watches from the doorway, eyes rimmed red, as if waiting for a verdict neither of us can deliver. The house is silent except for the hum of the computer. I log into the credit report site, fingers clumsy on the keys. The report loads slowly, each percentage point a new spike in my gut. When it appears, my hands go cold. There are 3 more accounts, department store cards, a car loan, opened in Sophia's name. Balances she could never have touched. I grab my phone and start dialing. Each call lands in a maze of automated prompts. Press 3, enter PIN, please hold. The on-hold music blurs into a low, endless drone. I scribble notes, cross them out, wait for supervisors who never arrive. At some point, Sophia brings me a glass of water. I catch her hand. Her skin is colder than mine, fingers trembling. I try to smile but my mouth is dry. "We'll fix this," I say, but the words land flat, uncertain. The next call routes me to a fraud department that tells me I need to file a police report first. Another puts me on hold so long the line drops. Each new barrier stacks up, a wall I can't see past. The light outside is fading, but I can't bring myself to move. I stare at my notes, the phone numbers blurring, and wonder how many other doors will close in the meantime. A name flashes in my mind, Eli Warner. Years ago, he helped my sister with a mess after her wallet was stolen. I dig through old contacts, my thumb sliding across the screen. Eli picks up on the second ring, his voice brisk, a little wary. Hey, it's been a while, I explain in halting bursts, the words tumbling over each other. Sophia's identity, college decision, banks refusing to help, the deadlines. I can hear him clicking at a keyboard, pausing only once. I can walk you through the paperwork, put you in touch with an investigator I trust. But you need to know, these things move slow. Weeks, sometimes months. You may not hear back before those deadlines. A chill seeps in under the window frame, prickling my skin. I close my eyes, listening to Eli's voice thread through the static. I want to believe he can fix this, want to believe anyone can. I'll email you a template for the dispute letters, he says gently. Start with the police report. Document everything. And, prepare Sophia. This might get worse before it gets better. When I hang up, the room feels smaller. Sophia leans against the wall, silent, waiting. I realize I haven't told her everything Eli warned me about, how easily things slip out of our control. The cursor blinks on the blank police report form. My heart pounds, slow and heavy, as I start to type. I wonder what else will be taken from us before this is over. A low buzz fills my ears as I reread the bank's email on my phone, hands numb from gripping the sync too tightly. They say the loan appears consistent with historical account activity, and unless I can provide further evidence of fraud, it stands. The word stands, as if this is settled, as if they haven't just slammed a metal door shut. My scalp tingles. I wait for a loophole or an exception to present itself, but there's only the hard tile under my feet and the clatter of Sophia's spoon in the kitchen. I swallow. I can still taste panic, sharp and metallic behind my teeth. A weight drops inside me, heavy and cold, as I realize we're back at the start, worse, even. Sophia's future is getting dismantled by numbers and protocols that won't look up from their checklists. I press my phone to my chest, listening for any hint of her hope in the next room, terrified she'll ask what I'll say if we lose. The silence in the hallway grows charged, brittle. I glance down at her stack of acceptance letters and FOFSA printouts, half expecting them to just disappear. Somewhere behind me, Eli's voice cuts through, slightly hoarse. I got something. I find him hunched over the laptop, scrolling so fast the screen's a blur. Look, old news stories about a data breach, Edgeline Career Institute. That's where your info first showed up. He turns the screen to me, a logo I don't recognize, a headline about leaking student records. My throat tightens, but Sophia never. I stop. The college application portals, the mailing lists, the endless forms where we double-checked boxes and hit submit. My mind flashes back to pop-ups and autofills, to feeling rushed, missing fine print. A chill skims my arms as I read names cross-referenced with loan records. Not just Sophia, a whole list of kids, all targeted around the same time. I can't shake the sense that every keystroke we made put her right on someone's radar. I reach for Eli's arm, words tumbling out before I can filter them. Can you print all of it? Every article, every name? He just nods, already pulling up the admissions portal in another tab. The printer starts up, sputtering like it might choke, and for one raw second I imagine the stack of pages as armor. Maybe this is what we need to force someone to see. Morning sunlight cuts across the floor as I stand in the admissions office, a mess of printouts clutched to my chest. The receptionist's eyes flicker over them, then to me. She's careful, patient, but I can hear the warning in her voice. I understand, but I'm not authorized. I don't let her finish. My voice comes out rougher than I mean. Someone needs to see this. There's a pattern. These loans aren't just a mistake. Please escalate Sophia's case. Today, she's about to lose her financial aid in her spot. She hesitates, mouth pressed thin, then jots something on a pink slip and walks down the hall. I catch a whiff of antiseptic and ink. Every muscle in my body is wound tight, waiting for someone in authority to either open a door or slam it for good. When she returns, her face is unreadable. The director will see you now. I nod, not trusting my voice, and follow her down the blindingly bright corridor. Inside, the director's office is too tidy, the air too still. I lay the evidence on the desk, my hands shaking only a little. She's not the only one. I make myself meet his eyes. If you let this slide, it'll keep happening. The director's gaze flickers. For a moment, I think I see something shift, guilt, or maybe just calculation. He leans forward. We'll look into this. I promise. I don't believe him, but at least it's movement. As I stand to leave, the carpet muffles my steps, but my pulse still thunders. By noon, I'm hunched over our kitchen table, forms spread everywhere, police report, identity theft affidavit, loan dispute letters. The phone rings and rings. Each time, the hold music is a watery wall between us and someone else's responsibility. My handwriting blurs. The officer at the precinct barely glances at the paperwork. You'll need to file online, too. And contact the credit bureaus, freeze everything. His badge glints in the fluorescent light. He sounds bored, but the word everything echoes as I scribble. Eli's voice is thin, scratchy from too many calls. Experience says it could take weeks. Maybe longer. I nod, jaw clenched, feeling my own spine compress. Time is burning, deadlines for appeals, for aid packages, for admissions. All the while, I keep seeing Sophia's name on someone else's loan statement, like she's being erased and replaced in slow motion. That night, the house is too quiet. Sophia sits curled on the couch, knees pulled to her chest, phone dark in her lap. She barely looks up when I offer her tea. Her voice cracks the silence. I should have been more careful. I always just click next. It's my fault. My chest tightens. No, Soph. This isn't on you. But I can't finish, because part of me wonders if I missed something too, some warning or red flag, and the words dry up. Eli hovers in the doorway, arms crossed, not quite meeting my eyes. I sense him wanting to fix it, but just as trapped. Sophia's gaze is glassy. Maybe I just shouldn't go. Maybe it's a sign. Her words are too flat, too practiced, and I flinch. I reach for her hand, but she pulls away, folding deeper into herself. I want to shake her, or hold her, or both. We sit like that, together but isolated, the clock ticking loud against the wall. I wonder how much more we can take before something in us snaps. The man at the UPS counter slides Sophia's notarized affidavit across the laminate. His voice is low and direct. You need a receipt for this? The paper's still warm from the seal. I press it flat, nodding, feeling the edge cut gently against my palm, as if some small pain makes this more real. My chest is tight with hope I almost don't dare name. We move in a blur, scanning, emailing, copying every page to the college's appeals office, the state ombudsman, even the local reporter who actually calls me back this time. When I speak, my voice comes out raw. It was identity theft. We have the proof. The minutes drag. Sophia hovers behind me, fingers twisting the cord of her hoodie. Each reply dings into my inbox like a lifeline. The college's email, curt and formal. Upon further review, we are reopening Sophia's financial aid application immediately. My hand covers my mouth. I'm half laughing, half crying. Sophia's eyes are wild with relief. Does that mean, she asks, voice so small, and for the first time in days, I almost believe the future might not be lost. My phone vibrates with Eli's number. He's the fraud specialist, and by now, the only voice I trust. He doesn't waste breath. All right, I've put a rapid freeze on all those loans. They're in your file, flagged as fraud. Any new credit pulls, blocked. I let myself exhale, feeling a tension unspool down my spine I hadn't realized was holding me up. The fluorescent light above the kitchen table flickers. I watch his name pulse on the caller ID, and I want to ask if it's really over. But Eli is gentle, practical. It's not perfect. You might get more letters, maybe even calls. But this will keep anything new from hitting her record. He pauses. And I'll update you if anything changes. His kindness isn't casual, it's the kind that makes you realize how little you've been breathing. Sophia leans across the table, eyes tracing the paperwork. So, those loans, they can't hurt me anymore? Her voice trembles on the last word. I squeeze her hand, and for a moment, the world narrows to the two of us and the soft hum of the refrigerator, the night holding steady outside. The college's portal loads slowly, pixels crawling. Sophia's name pops up, application status, under review. I read it 3 times before I believe it. My heart pounds so hard it feels embarrassingly loud in the silence. We stare at the screen, not moving, waiting for it to blink or change or vanish like some cruel mirage. Sophia edges closer, knees knocking against mine. They're actually looking at it? There's a flush on her cheeks, hope fighting with disbelief. I nod, barely keeping my voice steady. They are. It's official. They can't ignore us now. Her shoulders drop, the tension spilling out of her with a shaky laugh. It's the first time she looks like herself again since this all began. Email after email filters in, most of them form responses, but one stands out. We apologize for the distress, and we are committed to a fair, expedited review. I blink at the words, trying to absorb them. For the first time, I picture Sophia walking across a quad in September, wind in her hair, future unspooling the way she always dreamed. It's a fragile hope, but I let myself hold on to it. Night seeps into the house, blue and quiet. I sit on Sophia's bed, the glow of her laptop painting everything in soft gold. She leans against my shoulder, silent, scrolling through campus photos, ivy on old brick, students huddled on benches in autumn jackets. My mind flickers between now and what could have been, the near miss, the emails, the panicked calls. My pulse slows, finally. In the hush, Sophia whispers, "I thought it was over." For real. I shake my head, more certain than I've been in days. "They almost took everything," I say, voice thick, "but you're still here." We're still here. Gratitude settles in, bittersweet and fierce. The old fears linger at the edge of my thoughts. What if another letter comes? What if someone out there still has her name, her number, her future in their hands? But right now, I find myself breathing deeper, the panic replaced by something stubborn and bright. I realize how close we came to letting someone else write Sophia's story. Tomorrow we wait. Tomorrow, another email, another answer, maybe more paperwork or another fight. But tonight, hope twines through our fear, fragile but stubborn, and I hear Sophia's quiet laugh, like something opening in the dark. The college portal loads slow, as if stalling on purpose. In the glow of my laptop, Sophia sits beside me, knees pulled to her chest, watching numbers and forms we've checked 100 times. There's no ding, no grand announcement, just a new line. Appeal approved. Status. Under review. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding, and Sophia's fingers grip my sleeve, grounding me here in this moment. Her voice is hoarse. "So, that means there's a chance?" The room feels full of cold morning air, even though it's afternoon. My chest tightens, not with panic now, but with something close to hope, warier, thinner. I want to promise everything's fixed. That the letters we sent, the hours spent on hold, the bank visits, the police report, they'll stitch things back together. But I see the worry in Sophia's bitten lip and the shadows under her eyes. I say, "Anyway, it's not over, but we're through the hardest part. We just keep fighting." She nods, and for the first time since this started, her shoulders drop, just barely. My mind flickers to passwords, locks, and credit freezes, layers of new caution I never wanted for her, or for us. When she leans her head on my shoulder, I feel how much this changed us, how much more careful and close we've become. I still don't know who did it, or if we'll ever fully outrun the damage. But as Sophia whispers, "Thank you," I realize, the fear's still there, but it doesn't have the last word. Tomorrow I'll call the financial aid office again. Tonight, I'm letting the quiet settle, waiting for the next email that could change everything, again. Sophia sits at the kitchen table, her fingers tapping a nervous rhythm on the edge of her laptop. The morning light glints off the chipped mug between us, half full now, gone tepid while we scroll through the new passwords, the credit monitoring app, the list of frozen accounts. Each small step, every lock, every new question added to her bank profile, feels like we're sealing up cracks in old plaster after a storm. My pulse finally slows. I look at her, chin set with something new behind the exhaustion. I want to hug her, but instead I say, "We're going to be okay, you know?" My voice is steadier than I feel. Her eyes flick up to mine, wide and wary, but for the first time in days there's a flash of humor. "No more sticky notes on the fridge, right?" She tries for a smile. It nearly lands. I let out a shaky laugh, surprised by the sound. Our living room feels smaller now, closer. The files and forms scattered across the table are a mess, but they're ours. We made it through. I realize I'm not just relieved, there's a fragile kind of pride settling in, something I haven't felt in a long time. The kettle whistles in the background, and it's the most normal thing in the world. I watch Sophia gather her hair into a messy knot, her hands steadier now, her posture taller. The worst seems over, but something in my chest won't quite let go. I touch her shoulder, light, just for a second, and she doesn't flinch. We're different now, maybe stronger, maybe just more careful. Maybe that's enough. Late that night, the house creaks around us as I double-check the locks, the router, the stack of paper mail we never used to bother with. Sophia's door is closed, a sliver of soft yellow spilling into the dark. I stand in the hallway, listening for her breath above the quiet hum of her laptop. On my phone, another alert pings. Just a routine verification, but my body tenses before my mind catches up. I scan every detail, hunting for patterns, for threats. The fear is smaller now, less sharp, but it's there. I don't know if it ever fully goes away. Under the bathroom light, I see my reflection, older, maybe, but less helpless. I know I'll keep watching, keep checking, because this world doesn't let you stop. I pause before bed, staring at the locked filing cabinet and the blue light from Sophia's room, wondering if she's sleeping. Is this vigilance what safety looks like now? The discharge form slid across my desk at 2 a.m., the paper still warm from the printer. My eyes stung from too much fluorescent light and not enough sleep, but I caught the name scrawled at the top, Elias H., age 8. Down the page, triage notes from earlier that night. Contusions on both upper arms, shallow laceration along his hairline, and 2 fading, thumb-shaped bruises almost hidden beneath the sleeve of his t-shirt. I could still see his small silhouette in the harsh glow of Bay 6, knees drawn to his chest on the exam table. Every time I spoke, he flinched, his gaze flicking toward the door, away from me, shrinking from some expectation I couldn't see. His mother hovered just outside the curtain, arms folded, lips pressed tight. When I asked Elias if anything hurt, he shook his head, voice barely above a whisper. I fell in the backyard. But his pupils darted side to side, his breath catching. I'd seen plenty of accidents that didn't line up, but this felt different, too quiet, too careful. I pressed the stethoscope to his chest, felt his heart racing under my palm. While I checked his wounds, the smell of antiseptic mixed with the faint, metallic tang of dried blood. I dabbed at the cut on his hairline, my gloves sticky with old clots. His flinch was instinctive, a muscle memory. "You're safe here, okay?" I murmured, but my words seemed to bounce off his shell. His mother's shadow crossed the curtain again, and he went still. Before I finished charting, my supervisor paged overhead. "Nurse Matthews, front desk." I tucked the clipboard under my arm, heart tight. When I returned, the notes from his previous visit, just 10 days ago, sat at the top of his chart. Another fall, this time down the stairs. Sprained wrist. Different bruises. I highlighted the new inconsistencies, tagging the chart with a yellow sticky. Pattern of injury. Consider social work referral. My pen hovered above the incident section. I wrote, patient appears fearful in caregiver's presence, story inconsistent with injuries. I glanced around, lowering my voice. "Dr. Shaw, can you take a look at this?" My supervisor barely glanced up from her screen, face illuminated blue by spreadsheets and a half-drunk cup of coffee. I explained my concerns, outlining the mismatched injuries and Elias's visible distress. She let out a soft sigh, tapping her pen. "We need to tread lightly here. The last time we flagged something like this, the family filed a complaint." She eyed the note I'd made, lips thinning. "Just document what you observe. Leave the conclusions out for now." The staff lounge was quiet, the hum of vending machines the only sound. I stared at the report in my hands, the incident section half blank. I pressed my thumb into the paper, feeling the pulse in my wrist. I wanted to protest, to say, "What if we missed something?" but I bit back the words. I could taste the bitterness rising in my throat. Dr. Shaw's voice lingered. "Let's not make waves." My hands trembled as I finished my charting. I sent a discreet page to risk management, outlining what I'd seen without crossing the invisible line my supervisor had drawn. The phone rang just once before a tired voice answered. "Risk, this is Alan." I cleared my throat. "Hi, this is Matthews, triage. Can I discuss a case?" I outlined Elias's injuries, hesitating over each word, careful not to sound alarmist. Alan's voice was flat, routine. "Noted. We'll flag it for review." The call ended with a hollow click. I stared at the receiver, wishing I'd said more. My shift dragged past 3. The air felt heavier with every passing minute, the distant beep of monitors a constant reminder that someone was always waiting. I returned to Elias's room. The lights were down, and he slept curled on his side, mouth parted, a smear of dried tears crusted on his cheek. His mother scrolled her phone in the chair, not looking up. A commotion at the desk pulled me away. Dr. Carr, our senior attending, swept past, white coat crisp, expression unreadable. He flipped through Elias's file, frowning at the highlighted notes. "Stable. Minor injuries. Discharge in the morning," he said, voice brisk, final. I started to protest, but he cut me off. "Kids bruise. We have to be careful about overreacting, Matthews." He underlined, "stable," in blue ink and signed with a flourish. I stood rooted, heat rising in my face. "But his injuries, they don't match the story." My voice sounded small, even to me. Dr. Carr gave me a practiced smile. "Not every scrape is cause for alarm. We have protocols. If social work deems it necessary, they'll follow up. For now, he goes home." The chart was stamped. I watched the ink dry, a sick feeling settling in my gut. My hands fidgeted, thumb rubbing my page-worn badge. I tried to catch Dr. Carr's gaze, but he was already moving on. The rest of my shift blurred together, each task mechanical, vitals, paperwork, hallway check-ins. My mind kept looping back. Elias's bruised arms pressed against his sides, the way he shrank from touch, the quiet plea in his eyes. I pulled up his chart again, searching for something I'd missed. That's when I noticed the discharge form, tonight's, and one from last month, misfiled under a different name. The details echoed: minor fall, no concern. Stable. But the signature didn't match any attending on staff that night. The timestamp was off by hours. Curious, I walked to the records room, the door creaking open into darkness, cold air seeping along the tile at my ankles. I flipped through the folders, fingertips tingling as I traced the edges of misfiled forms. Elias's file was thinner than it should have been. Pages missing. No follow-up notes from social work, just a sealed envelope marked, "Incident, Confidential." My pulse quickened. I tugged at the envelope, but it was stamped shut, red wax glinting in the dull overhead light. I pressed my ear to the silence, straining for footsteps, but the hallway was empty. I slipped the envelope back and gathered the paperwork, heart pounding. The discharge had been signed off, the case marked, "Stable." But the missing documentation, it wasn't just sloppiness. I felt the weight of something deliberate, something meant to stay buried. The floor buzzed beneath my feet, and as I walked back to the nurse's station, I wondered, how many other files were missing? And who was making sure they stayed that way? I spent the next morning with a tightness in my chest I couldn't shake. Sunlight filtered through the break room blinds, striping the linoleum in pale yellow, but I barely noticed. The night's paperwork was still in my hands: discharge summary, the triage form with its stark, scrawled description, multiple contusions, inconsistent history. My coffee tasted burnt. I found the copy machine humming in the hallway, warmed my hands on the stack of papers as I made duplicates, one set for files, one for me. Each crinkling page made me more certain this wasn't a clerical error. I dialed risk management from the staff phone, my fingertips sweaty against the receiver. "Hi, it's Emily on Pediatric Nights again. About the Martin child?" "Yes, the one from triage?" I tried to keep my voice steady, but my words felt clumsy. "I need to clarify why the discharge was so quick. The injuries." A sigh on the other end. "Case was reviewed. All appropriate channels notified. Per protocol, file is closed." Her tone was smooth, practiced, like reading a script. I pressed, asked for the reviewer's name, the timestamp on the decision. "All details are compliant with procedure," she said, her words clipped. "If you have further concerns, escalate through formal channels." The line clicked dead before I could ask more. The hallway felt colder than before. My hands shook as I tucked the copied forms into my bag, the sense of chasing shadows settling deeper by the minute. When I looked up, the clock read 8:06, but it might as well have been midnight for all the clarity I had. Downstairs, I spotted Dr. Chen at the nurse's station, Scrub's crisp and voice low as he dictated orders into the computer. He barely glanced up when I approached, but I couldn't let it go. "Dr. Chen?" I cleared my throat, feeling the words catch. "Can I ask about the Martin case from last night? The triage notes, there's a mismatch with the discharge." He set the phone down, turning slowly. "Emily, I'm sure you're aware these things move quickly on overnight. The child was stable, labs were clear." His eyes, flat and unreadable, flicked to the folder under my arm. "But the bruising, the family's story changed. Shouldn't we?" He cut me off with a pointed look. The attending decided. I signed off. "If you have a problem, speak to admin. But I'd be careful, night shift jobs are hard to come by." His words landed cold. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, harsh against my skin. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Dr. Chen returned to his charting, his fingers moving in quick, dismissive taps. The nurse's station felt suddenly claustrophobic, the air thick with unsaid warnings and the faint scent of antiseptic. I slipped away before anyone else could notice the exchange. My heart thudded, loud and arrhythmic, as I ducked into the supply closet to catch my breath. Later, in the break room, I found Rosa, sipping tea from a chipped mug. Her eyes darted to the door as I sat beside her, lowering my voice. "Did you see the Martin file? The discharge doesn't add up." She hesitated, then shook her head. "Emily, don't start. You know what happened last time someone asked too many questions. But this isn't right." The notes were changed. Someone stamped, "Stable," hours before he left. She set her mug down too quickly, sloshing tea. "You have a mortgage." "So do I. If they say case closed, it's closed. Please, just let it go." Her voice was thin, her fingers trembling just slightly as she wiped the spill. Outside the window, an ambulance wailed down the street, the sound sharp as a knife. Rosa looked at me, really looked, her eyes pleading. "You can't save them all," she whispered. I tried to answer, but my throat was tight. The walls pressed in, every sound suddenly amplified. The nurse at the desk coughing, the humming soda machine. I left before I lost what little composure I had, Rose's warning echoing in my ears. Back in records, I held the discharge form, the edges soft from handling. I stared at the digital file on the hospital system, time-stamped, authorized, pristine. But in the paper chart, a sheet was missing. I pawed through the folder, heart pounding, and there, misfiled behind radiology, was a sealed incident report. The red, confidential, stamp bled through the envelope. I hesitated only a second. My fingertips tingled as I slid the report free, eyes darting to the security camera in the corner. I unfolded the document. My pulse roared in my ears as I read, suspicion of non-accidental trauma. Family and cooperative. Recommend hold for further observation. Dated 3 hours before the discharge. My mouth went dry. This changed everything. The official version claimed the child was stable, but someone had documented the opposite, formally and in writing. I snapped a photo with my phone, the flash off, hands sweating, heart racing. A door slammed somewhere down the hall. I stuffed the report into the folder, tucking the envelope precisely where I'd found it. The air tasted of dust and old toner. I stood, head spinning, the pieces starting to align. Someone had buried this, but not well enough. I straightened my scrubs, the report's words repeating in my mind. Whose signature was on the bottom line? I was afraid to look, but more afraid not to. A shadow flickered under the records room door, then stilled. I froze, the document pressed to my chest, breath caught, wondering if someone else already knew what I'd found. The beep of the triage desk phone jolts me from my charting, its ring slicing through the thick, fluorescent-lit hush of the night shift. My coffee's gone cold, the rim sticky against my palm. I barely hear the words over the static, pediatric, return visit. Ed entrance. The child. My heart knocks hard behind my ribs. I force myself to walk, clipboard clutched like a shield, shoes squeaking on linoleum. It's him, same tangled hair, same thin wrists, same deep shadow over his right cheekbone, now mixed with fresher, bright purple marks that look too new. The social worker's gone for the night. The resident on call's shoulders stiffen when he spots the child. Wasn't he just, he starts, his voice a low vibration, but the paramedic shakes his head and murmurs, just dropped off. Mother's waiting outside. I squat to eye level, ignoring the tang of antiseptic and the crinkle of paper on the gurney. Can you tell me where it hurts? I ask, voice gentle. He doesn't answer, he just hugs his knees tighter, eyes darting to the automatic doors. I catch his gaze. There's something in it, raw and silent, that makes my skin gooseflesh. Let's at least check him in for vitals. I say to the resident, but before the words leave my mouth, a woman slips in, her coat pulled close. She barely glances at me before taking the child's hand. We're leaving. He's fine, she says. I freeze, unable to stop her as she guides him out. The doors hiss open, swallowing their shapes in a cold rush. I stare at the empty gurney. The echo of their footsteps lingers long after they're gone. I want to run after them, shout, demand someone notice. Instead I just stand there, my hands numb, every nerve in my body ringing with alarm. I tell myself I'll find something, some trace, anything, but all I have is a memory of those new bruises and the hush of the night swallowing my questions. That's when I start digging. The next night, after my shift, the hospital halls are hollow, just the hum of the janitor's cart in the distance. I slip into the staff lounge, the air stale with burnt popcorn and floor wax. My badge shakes a little in my hand as I log into the ancient desktop, its monitor flickering. I search for the child's file, nothing new. But a keyword search for incident pulls up something strange, an internal memo, buried in a folder marked quality assurance. My pulse stutters as I open it. It isn't about the boy. It's about patterns, missed injuries, cases closed too early, a chart, error rates, spikes, bolded warnings about data anomalies in pediatric discharge forms. Names I recognize, mine, a few colleagues. At the bottom, a line, administrative review in process. Confidential, no outside disclosure. My mouth goes dry, I taste metal. I scroll, finding incident numbers that don't match any patient I remember. There's a sealed report, locked, inaccessible, but the subject line is clear, child welfare, procedural deviation. I realize this isn't about one slip. This is bigger, deliberate. The kind of thing nobody wants traced. A door slams somewhere, I flinch. Someone's coming. I close the memo, heart in my throat, backing away from the screen. There's a feeling in my gut, like I've crawled onto thin ice and heard the first crack. I can't shake the thought. How many children? How many sealed forms? I try to file a new incident report. I pull up the system, fingers trembling so hard I hit the wrong keys. The login window stalls. I try again. Access denied. The screen flickers, a red banner flashing. User permissions restricted. Please contact supervisor. My cheeks burn. I jab the mouse, try my password 2 more times. User locked out. I look around, nobody's here, but the silence feels suddenly watchful, thick with the electric hum of the ceiling lights. I open the old charting software, same error. I reach for my phone, fingers slick with sweat, to take photos of the memo, but the screen times out, logged out. I press the power button, nothing. The computer reboots, the file's gone. My head is pounding, panic creeping up my spine. They're shutting me out. Someone knew I was looking. I think of the boy's bruises, the hesitant way he'd looked at me. I punch a number for hospital IT, but it rings and rings. My voice, when I leave a message, is thin and flat. This is Dr. Patel. I'm locked out of the reporting system. Please call back. No answer. I want to scream, but all I can do is sit there, staring at the empty login screen. Helpless. I need a way around the system. I think of Marta, the social worker, always the last to leave, her office light a sliver even past midnight. Tonight, the hallway's dark, her door shut. I hesitate, then dial her cell anyway, the number memorized from 100 consultations. My throat is dry, voice barely above a whisper when she answers. Marta, it's me. I need to talk. Something's wrong with the discharge forms. Do you have a minute? There's a pause, then a long sigh. You too, she says, her voice softened by exhaustion. I've seen them hide things before. They say it's to protect families. But it's not. It's so nobody gets in trouble. I swallow, hand pressed to my chest, feeling my heartbeat stutter. Has this happened before? Kids coming back with new injuries, then vanishing from the system? Marta's voice drops to a hush. Last spring. And 2 years ago. I filed, they buried it. Told me to let it go, for the hospital's sake. You need to be careful. The line crackles. I hear a dog barking in the background, the faint clatter of dishes. It feels strange and intimate, like we're sharing a secret in a confessional booth. What did you do? I ask, almost afraid of the answer. I kept copies. Not on the hospital drive. If you want to see, meet me tomorrow, after rounds. She hesitates. But you know, if you push this, they'll come after you too. I hang up, hands shaking in the dark, a whisper of hope flickering beneath the fear. I'm not alone. Someone else sees what I see. But the chill that settles in my bones is deeper than before. There's a way forward, but it's lined with warning signs. I sit at my desk, the flicker of the lamp casting shadows on the pile of files at my elbow. The discharge form is still there, creased and stained, the stable stamp glaring up at me like an accusation. Next to it, my own notes, photos of the bruises, the times, the dates. I reach for the folder. My thumb hovers over the call button for the Child Protective Hotline. If I send this, I might save him. But I might lose my job. My license. Everything I've built. I stare at the evidence, the sealed report, the memo I managed to print before the system locked me out. My hand shakes so badly I almost drop it. I can feel every beat of my heart, the distant echo of that child's frightened eyes. My stomach twists. If I stay silent, nothing changes. If I speak up, the world might tip out from under me. A voice in my head whispers, do it. But another, quieter voice says, once you start, there's no going back. A knock rattles my office door, sharp and sudden. I freeze, papers half shoved in my bag, my decision still hanging between courage and fear. When I left the staff lounge that night, the unit felt different, as if the fluorescent lights had dimmed just for me. My hands were steady now. I walked toward the copier, the misfiled discharge form and the sealed incident report pressed flat between my palm and the manila envelope. My badge swung against my hip, a quiet, metallic rhythm. I knew what I was about to do. I had spent all day weighing risks, replaying the sound of that child's voice, thin, tired, and too compliant for 6 years old, each time I closed my eyes. No more chain of command. No more waiting. I slid the papers into the envelope, scrawled the address of the Child Welfare Board across the front, and taped it closed. My mouth tasted dry, chemical, like the hospital coffee sitting cold on the breakroom table. Every footstep down the corridor echoed, too loud. I passed the charge nurse, who barely looked up from her charting. Out by the ambulance bay, the night air was cold, tinged with diesel and rain. I shoved the envelope into the outgoing mail bin, heart pounding. I kept thinking, this is it. There's no undoing this. I took a breath, sharp and cold, letting the air settle the tremor in my chest. Out here, I made a choice. No matter what came after, the truth was moving forward now. The next morning, the unit was on edge before I even stepped inside. Every conversation turned hushed when I passed. In the break room, Sarah's hands shook as she poured coffee, the mug rattling against the carafe. Did you hear? She whispered, not looking at me. Risk is, everyone's being called in. They're saying there's been a leak. I tried to keep my voice steady. A leak? Sarah's eyes darted up, searching my face for something, maybe a sign I'd admit to what she already suspected. They're checking the sign-outs. Someone's going over the paperwork from last night. My throat felt tight, and my skin prickled with cold sweat. The overhead speaker crackled, Dr. Green to administration. Dr. Green, please report. My name. The words echoed in my ribs. As I walked to the office, every step seemed to pulse with new weight. Down the hall, Dr. Fraser, our senior physician, stood with his arms folded, lips pressed tight. You'll want to have your notes in order, he said low, eyes sharp. This is serious. I nodded, heart in my throat. The air in the admin suite was stale, heavy with the scent of burnt coffee and old paperwork. Inside, the director's voice was clipped. Do you know anything about a missing incident report? She stared at me, searching for a crack in my composure. I forced my hands to stay still in my lap, refusing to look away. I documented everything. The child's injuries, the triage notes. She leaned forward. We're investigating a breach. Until further notice, you're to remain on site. I walked out, skin buzzing, wondering how many eyes were following me. Rumors spread like smoke. By noon, every glance in the hallway lingered just a second too long. The nurse who'd once saved me a seat at lunch now turned away, suddenly preoccupied with the vending machine. At the nurse's station, laughter dropped to a hush as I approached. Someone muttered, "That's her." I tried to work, but every chart I opened felt heavier than the last. The murmurs grew. People said I'd gone outside the system, that I'd put the hospital's reputation at risk. In the staff bathroom, the stall door had a new scratch, snitches get stitches. My own reflection looked foreign, tired eyes, jaw clenched too tight. Dr. Fraser cornered me by the medicine cart, voice low. You made it public, he accused. Do you realize what you've done? You think you're helping, but you've set off a bomb. I did what I had to, I said, not trusting my voice to stay steady. He shook his head once, sharply, and walked away, leaving a cold emptiness in the space between us. The unit felt smaller, the air thicker, every movement watched. But I kept my head up, because somewhere behind all the noise, a child's fate was tangled in our silence. I walked the halls, unanswered questions heavy between every door. It happened suddenly. The arrival of 2 state investigators, one in a suit, the other in a windbreaker, sent the unit into a hush. Their shoes squeaked on the linoleum as they approached the charge desk, badges flashed and faces gone pale. I was called to the conference room, the one with the frosted glass and the humming fluorescent light. My heart beat hard enough to blur the edges of my vision as I sat across from them. The lead investigator set the envelope on the table, my handwriting plain on the front. We received this yesterday, she said. Your documentation is thorough. Because of it, the child's case is being reopened. I exhaled, so relieved I almost laughed. The terror and guilt that had lived inside me for days flickered, then eased. She looked me in the eyes. You did the right thing. Sometimes the process fails. That's why we're here. Outside, the air in the corridor seemed lighter. The sealed report was no longer hidden away. As word spread, the rumors changed shape, some angry, some admiring, but all quieter now. But as the investigators headed to the administrator's office, I heard my boss's voice, muffled through the glass, sharp with accusation. Who else knew? How far does this go? The relief was real, but the fallout wasn't over. I watched the closed door, heart pounding, wondering who would be next to answer, and if the truth would finally be enough. I sat stiffly in the conference room chair, palms sweating against the hard plastic arms. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed like cicadas, and the air smelled faintly of antiseptic. Across the table, the review board leafed through printed emails and that same misfiled discharge form, its corner creased from too many hands. Do you have anything to add? Dr. Lin asked, voice measured. My chest tightened, but I met her eyes. I stand by what I reported. The child was not safe to discharge. The silence stretched, broken only by the shuffling of papers and the ticking wall clock. I tried not to glance at the sealed incident report, lying untouched. My heart hammered. I could already imagine how this might follow me. A week later, a note appeared in my locker, folded into a square. "Thank you for not letting this disappear," it read, signed by the social worker. Later, the child's new guardian approached me outside, voice low. "You made a difference. I just wanted you to know." For a moment, the tightness in my chest eased. I breathed in cool evening air, the hospital's humming generators a distant backdrop. Still, every shift felt heavier now. Would I raise the alarm again, if it meant risking my job? I watched the sunrise through the staff lounge window, coffee cooling in my hand, wondering where the line actually lived, between duty and survival. My phone vibrated on the tabletop. Another alert, another case number lighting up. I hesitated, thumb hovering over the screen. What would I do, if it happened again? By February, the faces around the nurses' station started to blur, half the regular staff were gone. Some left with brittle, polite farewells, some just disappeared between shifts, their lockers emptied by the time we arrived at dusk. Every week brought a new round of emails, "Please welcome," and, "Due to transitions in our team." The stale coffee and echo of badge scanners felt sharper in the hush, the old camaraderie dissolved into careful, professional silence. The new protocols came down in bullet-pointed memos, each more urgent than the last. Mandatory second sign-offs. All pediatric injuries require direct supervisor review. We huddled through training sessions in the windowless break room, overhead lights buzzing, cold metal chairs pressing into my spine. They brought in consultants who smiled tightly and repeated phrases like, "restoring confidence in care," and "continuous improvement." We watched the slides and signed off on the binders, but nobody mentioned the case that had started it all. The bruises, the stamped form, the sealed report, they weren't on the agenda. Sometimes, in the middle of a shift, I'd glance over at the triage desk and remember the night the discharge form appeared. It was like a splinter under the skin, invisible, but impossible to ignore. I started to flinch at the sound of the pneumatic tube popping open, half expecting more misfiled paperwork or some new contradiction. One night, after a particularly long double, I lingered at the desk while Jacinta, one of the few nurses who'd stayed, tossed her gloves in the bin. She lowered her voice. "You think all this is actually safer, or just for show?" I hesitated, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the hum of the vending machine in the background. "I don't know anymore," I admitted. "It's like they fixed the locks, but left the doors wide open." We fell quiet, both watching the red digital clock crawl toward shift change. It felt like we were actors in a play, reciting new lines, but the story never actually changed. The staff meetings grew tense. I caught doctors arguing in low voices behind closed doors, their faces tight, notes clutched white-knuckled. Trust, I realized, isn't just about protocols, it's about believing someone will act when it matters. Lately, I wasn't sure anyone did. I started walking the long way to my car, past the old records office. There, the residual chill of the night air always hit hardest, the scent of ozone, the echo of my own footsteps, the metallic tang of keys in my hand. It reminded me how much had shifted, how far we'd drifted from the certainty we once had. I wondered, as I stepped into the darkness, if anything would ever really feel safe here again. On days off, I caught myself replaying everything, every small choice, every signed form. I asked myself, should I have pushed harder? Should I have called higher or spoken louder? The system was supposed to protect us, and above all, protect them, kids who couldn't speak for themselves. But that night proved you can follow every rule and still betray what matters most. I'd sit at my kitchen table, hands curled around a mug gone cold. The city lights outside blurred in the rain, and the silence in my apartment felt dense, weighted. I replayed the administrator's even tones when I'd brought the incident up. "We're reviewing the process," she'd said, lips tight. I thought of the sealed report, still somewhere in the archives, names blacked out, conclusions drawn without witnesses. If I stayed silent, didn't I become part of the machine? But sticking out your neck here meant risking everything, your reputation, your job, the shredded illusion that we were making a difference. Some nights, the memory of that child's eyes would jolt me awake before dawn. I'd lie there, heart racing, wondering if another case was slipping through the cracks right now, somewhere in this city. The choice pressed down on me: keep my head low, or break the unspoken rules. I knew what was right, but following through was something else entirely. I promised myself, quietly, that next time I'd do more. I'd find a way to leave a mark that couldn't be erased, even if it meant standing alone. But as I gathered my bag and walked out into the pre-dawn fog, I wondered, what would it really cost to stop being complicit? And if I did speak out, would the system change, or just change me?
The medcart's familiar rattle echoed down the corridor as I pushed it between rooms, the wheels catching every divot in the linoleum. I could smell the faint antiseptic overlaying coffee and someone's cheap vanilla lotion. The shift report from nights was pinned beneath my clipboard, marred with notes in my own messy hand, reminders, little checkmarks, red stars for wound care. I liked being the early one, the one who made sure nothing was missed before the chaos of the day started. I could feel the warm pulse of routine in my chest, each task familiar. The click of syringes, the gentle hush as I checked IV sites, the way Mrs. Hanley's eyes crinkled when I asked about her daughter's wedding. I knew every regular's habits, the diabetic who hid her cookies, the war vet who'd wink if you coaxed him into his chair. The other nurses called me the Hawk, because I noticed details, the sort of things that stopped mistakes before they started. There was a certainty to it all, a proud hum behind my ribs, that sweet, quiet sense of being needed. Even the little things, the way the aides would hand me their weirdest questions, or Dr. Patel's dry, approving nod, felt like proof I'd finally found my place. I was good at this. I knew I was. It was 9:42 when the call bell flashed above room 117. The hallway looked washed out, morning light coming in at a harsh slant. I heard the sharp beep, then a muffled voice, "Mrs. Clem's daughter, urgent, she's not responding. Please, something's wrong." My pulse slammed against my collarbones as I jogged in, cart abandoned by the doorway. Mrs. Clem's skin looked pale, almost waxy, her lips tinged blue. There was a sour chemical whiff, sharp and wrong, even through my mask. My hands worked on autopilot, vitals, sternal rub, oxygen, the monitor chirping with a strange, weak rhythm. In the doorway, Claire hovered, biting at her nail. I heard her whisper, "Weren't her meds changed last night? Just loud enough for the daughter to hear." My stomach twisted. I barely registered the family's faces, fear, suspicion, something like accusation. My mind turned over everything I'd done for Mrs. Clem that morning, searching for any crack. The next minute blurred, code blue, chest compressions, the hollow thunk of the crash cart, Dr. Patel's voice barking orders. I kept thinking, did I miss something? Was this me? After, the room felt cold. A silence thickened, broken only by the daughter's sob. Claire looked at me, eyes too wide, then turned away. I was at the sink, scrubbing the scent of latex from my knuckles, when the charge nurse poked her head in. "Maya, you need to come with me. Now." Her voice was tight, clipped. Something was wrong, and I felt my throat closing as I followed her past the lounge, into the cramped office beside admin. A man in a suit, risk management, was waiting with folded hands. "We received an anonymous tip," he said, not looking at my face. "There are concerns about medication management documentation." My ears rang. He slid a bland HR packet across the desk. "You're being placed on administrative leave pending investigation." The room seemed to tilt, sliding out from under me. My fingers went numb. This is a mistake," I managed, but my words just hung in the air, useless. I saw the charge nurse's lips pinch, as if she was apologizing without a sound. I felt stripped, exposed, like they'd just peeled my skin back and left me raw. I thought I heard someone in the hallway whisper, "Maya?" before the door shut. The next morning, my badge and keys sat heavy in my purse. At home, my phone buzzed with messages I didn't answer. I stared at the kitchen counter, coffee growing cold, as risk management emails stacked up in my inbox. Every detail from the shift looped through my mind, dose times, EMAR logins, the odd way Claire had watched me. I wondered who'd sent the tip. Who wanted this? By midday, I checked the hospital's internal portal and saw the headline, "Ongoing internal review, patient safety priority." Beneath it, rumors bloomed in the group chats. Emily from evenings texted, "Are you okay? People are talking." I scrolled through social media, the news of Mrs. Clem's death creeping through the comments. I couldn't shake the sense that every eye at the nurse's station was on me, even from miles away. My hands trembled as I tried to eat, fork scraping the plate. In my mind, the questions spiraled. What had I missed? Was this my fault, or was someone making it look that way? I opened my email again, breath shallow, as a new message landed. Subject: Request for interview Medication Administration July 14th. My stomach dropped. I clicked it open, scanning for some hint, some clue, about what they already knew. I found only one new line. Please bring any documentation you have. There are gaps in the CCTV footage for that morning. A cold, prickling line crept up my spine. Someone, somewhere, was already rewriting the story of what happened in room 117. I wasn't sure if I wanted to know how far they'd go. The click of the admin's shoes echoed down the linoleum as they led me into the little side office, its overhead lights a shade too harsh. I sank into the plastic chair, the vinyl squeaking beneath me. Someone set a folder on the table, thicker than it should have been. Across from me, a compliance officer scrolled on a tablet, lips pursed. I could see the blink of the computer monitor in her glasses. We're pulling your medication logs, Maya. Toxicology screens are being run. HR will reach out for a formal statement. The words felt clinical, detached. It didn't feel like they were talking to me, but about me, as if I was a puzzle piece they needed to fit somewhere. My hands, always steady with a needle, trembled over my badge lanyard. My mouth was dry, tongue heavy against my teeth. I tried to focus on the facts, the things I knew. The time of the code blue, the meds I'd charted, the patient's last words. But even my memories felt slippery, like trying to recall a dream before it vanished. I couldn't read the faces around me, and suddenly I realized I was alone here. Not a nurse, not a person, just a case. The edges of the room blurred for a second. I pressed my palms to my knees, searching for something solid. I needed someone to just look at me and believe I hadn't done anything wrong. A knock at the door startled me. Claire stepped in, her hair tied back, lips drawn into a line that was almost pity, almost accusation. She folded her arms tight across her scrubs. You know, you were in there a long time, Maya. Longer than anyone else. Her words landed carefully, each one too sharp. You kept asking about his pain. Switching out syringes. I noticed. I looked up, searching her eyes for the old warmth, but there was nothing, just cold calculation. My chest tightened, air shallow at the top of my lungs. Was she right? Had I hovered too long? I replayed the shift in my mind, sudden flashes, me counting pills, double-checking dosages, feeling the patient's pulse. I was just following protocol, I managed, voice thin. She didn't respond, just watched. A memory flickered. Claire at the desk, her voice low as she called pharmacy, her eyes flicking to me. Was she always so attentive? Doubt curled in my gut. Maybe I had missed something. Maybe I tried too hard, stayed too late, crossed some invisible line. Claire's silence lingered as she left, the door clicking shut behind her. I realized I couldn't trust what I remembered anymore. Later, I sat with the compliance officer again. He tapped at the tablet, scrolling through grainy CCTV footage. The looping black and white images skipped, time stamped in the corner. Here's your entry at 1548, he said, pointing. I nodded, watching myself wheel the med cart past the nurse's station. Watch. There's a gap from 1603 to 1617. System rebooted, apparently. I leaned closer, heart pounding. That window. Right when the patient coded. The screen jumped. Suddenly it was me, again, but further down the hall, the med cart gone. He flipped to the EMAR on the next screen. According to this, your dilaudid admin was at 1610. I stared at the digital signature, my initials, time stamped. But I couldn't remember scanning in right then. Are you sure you charted this as soon as you gave it? I swallowed. I think so. I usually do. A shiver crept up my spine. Usually wasn't enough. I stared at the silent gap in the video, a void that could swallow anything. By the time my shift should have ended, the sky outside was deepening to blue. Jamal found me in the break room, slumped over the lone vending machine, rubbing my face. His voice was soft, careful. Maya. You good? I shook my head, too tired to pretend. He slid into the chair next to me, his hand almost touching mine on the table. Walk me through it, he said gently. Every minute. I tried, halting at first, but then letting the sequence spill out. When I prepped the meds, when I checked vitals, how the room smelled faintly of antiseptic and sweat. He listened, nodding, sometimes scribbling on a post-it. You ever see a MAR autosave late? He asked. I blinked, thinking. Sometimes, if the Wi-Fi lags. It's rare, but, yeah. He pointed at the post-it. Could be that. Or the scanner. Don't jump to blame yourself. His words landed like a hand on my back, steadying me for just a second. For the first time all day, I felt something uncoil inside me. Like maybe this wasn't all my fault. like maybe I could make it through the next hour. Still, as Jamal stood to leave, I caught sight of the admin through the window, phone pressed to her ear, eyes flicking up to meet mine. I wondered what she was saying, and if I'd ever get the chance to explain anything in my own words. The toxicology report slapped thuds onto the table, paper stiff and heavy and official, and I watched Dr. Kim's eyes flick between numbers as if the answer might move if she blinks. Her lips press into a thin white line. Serum morphine at 0.18. Borderline, she mutters, not quite to me, not quite to herself. In the silence, I hear the faint wheeze of the vent in the ceiling, stale and mechanical, blowing recycled hospital air. My neck sweats under my scrubs. I shift in my seat, palms damp against the vinyl. The numbers on that page are supposed to clear me, or damn me, but instead they balance on a knife edge, neither falling. My thoughts stutter. Did I doze too late, too much? Or did the body just fail, as they sometimes do, in spite of every protocol? Across the table, Dr. Kim's brow furrows deeper as the consultant for the hospital drive. Richie, pale and precise, taps a red pen against a line. Could be within palliative range. Could also be an error. His voice is so neutral it makes my skin crawl. I want to shout, to demand certainty, but I just sit with my jaw tight, heart pounding behind my ribs. I can see how easily this will be twisted, how one decimal point could swing me into guilt or save me by a hair. I'm not sure which frightens me more, that I might be at fault, or that the truth is so fragile it could be erased by doubt. I press my tongue to dry teeth, waiting for someone to say something that makes my fate less blurry. Instead, the room hangs, tense, waiting for a verdict that never comes. Beth sweeps in with a stack of EMAR printouts, shuffling them in front of the room. She slides one page across, columns of medication logs, neat and time-stamped until the last line, where the font shifts just slightly, numbers indented where they shouldn't be. My stomach plunges as Dr. Kim leans in, pointing to a highlighted entry. Logged after shift end, she says, voice clipped. Time stamp edit at 7:12. Maya, that's yours. I stare at it, cold sweat prickling behind my knees. I didn't touch it, did I? I replay the end of my shift in my head, the blur of beeps and signatures, hands shaky with exhaustion. There's no memory of returning to that terminal, no reason to change anything. But the log is there. It bears my ID. It looks like I went back. A thick pressure builds behind my eyes. I didn't edit this, I whisper, but my voice sounds small and brittle. Every eye in the room fixes on me, some skeptical, some pitying. The document doesn't care about my voice or my terror. It just sits, black and white, making me look like a liar. I want to run. Instead, I sit still, heart jackhammering, thinking of all the ways this could be used against me. If they believe this, nothing else I say will matter. I can feel my throat closing, drowning in the knowledge that sometimes innocence is just another word for powerless. The meeting edges into silence, then Mr. Sadie from admin clears his throat. He's tapping at his tablet, scrolling through a spreadsheet, and I can see sweat shining on his temple. About the CCTV footage, he starts, but his tone is careful, rehearsed. The system does a scheduled reboot every night at shift change. Automatic, per policy. No sign of manual tampering or deletion. A static pause. I glance at Jamal, who's frowning, arms crossed tight. The camera's missed 20 crucial minutes, enough time for anyone to do anything, unseen. That's convenient, Jamal mutters under his breath, and my chest tightens. Sadie shrugs, all defensiveness. We have logs. The reboot's been standard for over a year. It's not just this night. But the way no one meets my eyes makes the air feel thin and sharp. The policy could be real, but it doesn't feel like safety. It feels like a shadow, a place where truth could disappear. I look down at my hands, knuckles white. With no footage, my word is just that, word. And somewhere in those lost minutes, my entire career is suspended, hanging in a blank, unrecorded gap. I don't say anything. The room doesn't notice, it's already moved on, leaving me adrift in questions that don't have answers. Jamal's phone buzzes, and he steps into the hall, returning 2 minutes later with a strange tightness in his jaw. Got something, he says quietly, waving me over. We duck into an empty consult room, and he hands me his phone, screen lit with an email. Anonymous tip line. IT traced the Wi-Fi session, originated in the outpatient lounge. But the login profile matches Claire's. Claire. That name lands like an icy wave across my shoulders. She was on days last week, always bristling under the surface, but I'd never imagine her. She filed the tip? Jamal nods, eyes narrowed. She had a dispute last month, grievance over overtime, never got resolved. She's got history with admin. Maybe a grudge. He drops his voice. Hospital wants a scapegoat. She gives them a suspect, maybe they let her issue go. A slow dread seeps up my spine. If Claire started this, did she know something I didn't, or just want someone else to pay? Every interaction with her replays in my mind, brittle and sharp, the way she'd avoid eye contact, snap at my charting. I wonder how much of this is about me, and how much is about someone else's war. I press my fingers to my temples, suddenly desperate to find something, anything, that can't be twisted or erased. The only thing left is the audit trail. Jamal sits beside me at the workstation, his breath shallow and quick as the room's lights flicker above us. The audit log spreads across the screen, thousands of lines, every click and every badge swipe. We search for the gap, for the one timestamp that could prove I didn't touch the EMAR post shift. Rows blur. Minutes tick by. Then, Jamal leans forward, finger jabbing at a single entry. Here. You badged out at 6:52. The EMAR edit is 7:12. His voice is tight, urgent. You weren't even in the building. For the first time in days, something lifts off my chest. I have proof, real, digital, impartial. My body floods with shaky relief, something almost like hope. But my mind can't rest, not yet. If I didn't make that edit, someone else did, using my credentials. I glance over at Jamal, pulse racing, and whisper, then who logged in as me? As the question hangs in the air, the old fear returns, sharper than ever. The conference room was freezing, fluorescent lights buzzing like insects overhead, when Janet slid the tablet across the table. She tapped the screen, voice clipped. This is the full audit trail. Barcode, timestamp, everything. I leaned over, scanning the EMAR log. My hands, visible in faint reflection, trembled as I traced the line. My login at 14:08, med scanned, dose confirmed, patient ID verified. The system marked each action, digital breadcrumbs. I fought the prickling behind my eyes, pulse pounding as I hunted for the moment they claimed I'd gone wrong. But the audit trail was clean. The only gap was after the window between my shift change and the code blue. Protocol, not malice. A weight lifted, sudden and dizzying. I sat back, breath shaky. The room blurred. For days, suspicion had pressed in, thick as fog, but now the raw data was there. I hadn't failed Mrs. Shu. The system had left an opening, but I hadn't slipped through it. Janet's voice was softer. You followed the policy, Maya. There's no deviation. Vindication burned through me, sharp, almost painful. But I clenched my jaw, bracing for what came next. Across from me, Claire's lips pressed thin as Janet flipped the tablet around for her to see. Claire's fingers curled tight on her phone, knuckles white. She didn't look at me, eyes flicking over the audit entries with a jerky impatience. Janet's tone was measured. The scan matches the med log. The timing is clear. There's no evidence Maya gave the wrong dose or skipped a step. Claire's jaw worked side to side. For a second, her face cracked open, hurt, not anger. So the system missed it, she muttered. Someone always finds a way to blame the chart. My heartbeat scratched at my ribs. I waited for her to meet my eyes, to say something direct. Instead, Claire stood abruptly, voice low. It doesn't change what happened to Mrs. Shu. The accusation in her voice lingered, colder than the room. I wanted to call after her, to demand why she'd come for me so hard. Instead, she walked out, heels echoing on linoleum. I was left with a hollow ache and too many questions. Down the hall, the admin boardroom was chaos. Hospital logo projected on a screen, angry voices ricocheting off glass. Risk management huddled with legal. The CNO fielded questions from the family's lawyer. Phrases overlapped. Protocol review, procedural gap, and loss of trust. I caught the edge of a conversation as I passed, someone whispering, if we can't guarantee safety, what's left? The words landed heavy. I thought of all the times I'd relied on the system, scan, beep, done. Now that safety net looked frayed. Staff clumped in quiet corners. Some avoided my gaze, others eyed me with a kind of wary respect. A few, faces drawn, just looked tired. I heard one nurse murmur, it could have been any of us, and the realization stung. The line between error and blame felt thinner than ever. A week later, I stood in the locker room, fingers numb as I zipped up the faded blue scrubs. The overheads flickered as I checked my badge, half expecting it not to beep at the staff entrance. It did. I was still allowed back in. The unit looked the same coffee stains by the desk, same low buzz of machines, but something in the air had shifted. My return was quiet. No more whispered accusations, but the warmth was gone, replaced by nods that felt rehearsed, careful. Jen caught my arm at the med cart. "You good?" Her eyes flicked to my badge, then back up. "I think so," I said, but my voice wavered. I wondered if she heard it, the part of me that wasn't sure. I was clear, vindicated by the log, not the people. I clocked in, but every step felt tentative, like the floor might give out beneath me. I'd fought so hard to prove I hadn't failed, but the doubts lingered anyway, curling under my skin. At the end of the shift, I caught my reflection in the supply room window, ghosted by the glare. I looked like myself, but I didn't feel like her. I wondered if things would ever really go back, or if, from now on, I'd always be waiting for the next gap in the system to swallow someone else whole. The break room light flickers, casting a tired, jaundiced glow over the paperwork I've spread across the table. My hands hover over the discharge summary, the same ones that, weeks ago, pressed a morphine drip and charted minute details. Every line now second-guessed by shadowy committee eyes. I watch the clock grind past midnight, silent except for the soft, steady whir of the vending machine. My chest feels both hollow and too tight. Exoneration should taste like relief, but all I swallow is the memory of days spent waiting for the toxicology report, the hours replaying gaps in CCTV, the anonymous emails, words echoing in my ears. I keep seeing Mr. Levine's face, the fleeting clarity in his gaze before the crash. Every detail still lives in me, restless and unfinished. I wonder if justice is ever clean for people who care for the dying. For weeks, I feared I'd lose everything for a mistake I didn't make, or worse, something I'd overlooked in the swirl of alarms and digital charts. Even now, I don't know if trust can truly return, not after seeing how easily suspicion infects a team. In the halls, people speak softer. I see nurses double-checking each EMAR entry, some even snapping quick photos of med labels with shaking hands, glancing over their shoulders as if the walls might listen. Hannah mutters, just being thorough, but her eyes flick to mine, then away. We all know now how thin the line is. How a late chart, a missed signature, can become someone's undoing. No one says Maya was framed, but no one calls it an error, either. The truth never lands neatly here. I tuck my badge into my bag, the hospital's buzz muffled by the closing door behind me. Tomorrow's shift waits, uncertain as ever, the question of trust hanging in the fluorescent-lit air. I press my palm against the cool glass of the conference room window, watching the parking lot fill with dusk. Each car headlight streaks wide across the pane and I count them, just to anchor myself. I hear muted voices bleeding through the wall, administrators talking quickly, the hard edges of their words clipped with urgency. My badge, cold and useless now, is still clipped to my top. The weight of it feels different than before, heavier, like a brand. A sudden knock at the door makes me jump. My chest tightens, breath pausing halfway. I turn to see Dr. Thoma's silhouette, his jaw clenched, eyes flicking away from mine as he enters. He doesn't sit. "You need to be ready. The board wants a statement." My tongue feels thick, mouth dry as old gauze. What do I even say? He shifts, glancing at the notepad in his hand. "Just tell the truth. The logs, Maya, they say you gave the med." A cold, crawling sensation trickles down my spine. I remember my hands that night, steady, gloved, moving with muscle memory. But the EMAR log said I signed for the vial. I remember the beeping, the interruption. Something wasn't right, but I can't name it. "Do they have the tox screens?" I ask. My voice comes out smaller than I want. He hesitates. "There's an anomaly. Traces of midazolam. Not what was ordered." His voice drops, softer, almost apologetic. "I'm sorry." My stomach hollows out, icy and trembling. I never touched that drug. The night's events twist in my head. Monitor alarms, code cart open, pharmacy techs shuffling past. Somewhere, a detail is missing or wrong. Dr. Thoma's hand hovers at the door. "They'll want to hear from you in 10. He leaves me with the hum of the vent and my own pulse thudding in my ears. 10 minutes. I look down at my hands, searching for memory, logic, innocence, anything I can use to fight what's coming. The hallway feels longer than usual as I walk. My shoes squeak on the waxed floor. I catch a whiff of lemon disinfectant, sharp and clean, but there's sweat pooling under my arms. At the end of the hall, Ms. Velasquez stands waiting, arms folded, lips pressed thin. She nods toward the door. They're ready. Her tone is flat, but her eyes linger on me, uncertain, almost sympathetic. Inside, the boardroom is stifling, the lights too bright. I count 4 sets of eyes: legal, HR, chief nursing officer, and a man in a gray suit I've never seen. There's a file in front of each of them, my name peeking from the tabs. Ms. Patel, the CNO begins, for the record, please describe the events of the night in question. My voice wavers. At 1942, I started rounds. I checked Mr. Kessler's vitals, his O2 was low, so I repositioned him. At 2000, I received an order for lorazepam. The man in the gray suit cuts in. At what point did you retrieve medication from the Pyxis? I try to picture the screen, my fingers entering my code. My chest feels tight, breath shallow. Maybe 8:20. I sign for lorazepam. He flips a page, but the EMAR logs show a withdrawal and administration of midazolam. Can you explain that discrepancy? My heart pounds so hard I almost miss his question. No, I never gave midazolam. I only gave what was ordered. He doesn't react. Toxicology found midazolam in Mr. Kessler's system. Do you dispute that? A shiver runs up my arms. I can't explain it. I cut off. They're all watching, pen still, waiting for me to hang myself. HR's voice is gentle. Maya, were you distracted that night? 1,000 tiny images flash. The code blew down the hall, the CNA asking for a lift, the crash cart wheeled past. There was a lot happening. But I checked every med. I know I did. She writes something. I can't see her eyes. The man in gray. Were you aware of a gap in the CCTV footage for the medication room? I blink. The air feels suddenly thinner. No. What do you mean? He slides a printout across the table. Between 2018 and 2031, there's a blackout. You're on camera entering, but there's nothing after. My mind lurches, 20 minutes vanished. My memory won't fill in the blank. That doesn't, we have backup, right? No backup, he says quietly. It's under review. Betrayal tightens inside my chest. I glance at Dr. Toma, but he's looking away. The room is silent except for the scribble of a pen. The CNO clears her throat. Did anyone else have access to your badge or log in? My jaw aches. No, I keep it with me at all times. Legal leans forward. We received an anonymous tip that you were seen with an unlogged vial after shift. Can you address that? My vision blurs at the edges. That's not true. I never took anything home. He slides another paper toward me, a statement, barely legible, unsigned. A thick silence grows. The slow tick of the wall clock drills into my skull. Did you see anyone else in the medroom during your shift? He asks. I scramble through the night's memories, faces, voices, hurried footsteps. I saw Angela from pharmacy, she was stalking. That's all. Another scribble. The heat in the room grows dense. The man in gray. You'll be placed on leave for the duration of the investigation. Please surrender your badge. My fingers feel numb as I unclip it, the motion mechanical. When he takes it, my hand trembles, skin prickling with shame. I glance at Dr. Toma, searching for anything, support, anger, doubt, but he's already looking at his phone. The conference room empties out. Ms. Velasquez is the last one to leave. Hang in there, Maya, she says softly, but she doesn't meet my eyes. I gather my bag. The badge is gone, my pockets empty, the weight of accusation settling in its place. The hall is silent, every step echoing as I walk out. Outside, the air is sticky and summer warm. I stare at the glow of the hospital windows and wonder if I'll ever be allowed back in. My phone buzzes in my pocket, unknown number. My heartbeat skips, then stutters. A text. I believe you. Meet me at the side entrance in 10. Don't tell anyone. My breath catches, confusion scraping at hope. I glance around, scanning faces in the parking lot, adrenaline singing in my blood. I type back, hands shaking. Who is this? No reply. The screen stays dark. I check the time, 9:22 p.m. 10 minutes to decide. I start walking, each step edged with fear and a flicker of reckless hope. The side entrance glows yellow under the street lamp. I keep to the shadows, heart hammering, mind racing with possibilities, ally or trap. Someone knows something. A shape waits by the door, hood up, face turned away. As I approach, I catch a faint whiff of cigarette smoke. My mouth goes dry. They speak, voice low, urgent. You're not crazy. Check the medroom bin. Tonight, before it's emptied. My pulse leaps. Who are you? But they're already moving, slipping into the dark with quick, purposeful steps. I stand alone, the words echoing in my head. The medroom bin. Was there something left behind? Something that would clear me, or damn me for good? I draw a shaky breath, decision curling in my gut. I can't run. I have to know. I step toward the hospital doors, the night pressing in, every instinct screaming that nothing will be the same again. The paper on the exam table crinkled under my mother's skirt as she shifted, picking at the hem with thin, persistent fingers. Dr. Alori's shoes clicked sharply against the tile, moving briskly around the cramped clinic room. She didn't smile, not really, her lips just pressed together, polite but hurried. I see you missed your last blood test, Ruth. Do you remember why? She asked, voice clipped. Mom blinked, brow furrowing. No, I thought that was next week. Elena, was it next week? Her eyes darted to me. I opened my mouth, but Dr. Alori was already scribbling something on the chart, not looking up. My stomach squeezed. Everything felt off balance, sped up. Maybe we should run a quick cognitive screen, she said, pen pausing. Just to be thorough. There was no warmth to her tone, only a brisk efficiency. I watched the way she avoided my gaze and felt cold settle in my chest. It was just a checkup, wasn't it? Why did it sound suddenly like a test we needed to pass? I reached for Mom's hand. Her palm was cool, trembling just slightly. Is this really necessary? I asked, trying to hide the shake in my voice. Dr. Alori finally looked at me, eyes flat and unreadable. It's standard with these symptoms. I'll send the nurse. She was gone before I could ask what symptoms she meant. There was something about the way the door clicked shut, final, deliberate, that made me wish I'd trusted my gut sooner. 2 days later, a thick envelope dropped through my mail slot and landed on the hallway tile with a flat slap. I crouched to pick it up, heart stuttering as I recognized the return address from the county courthouse. Inside, a letter, dense with legal jargon, and a copy of something called a physician's certificate of incapacity. My mother's name, printed in neat black type, next to a checkmark. Unable to manage personal or financial affairs. A petition for temporary guardianship. My chest tightened, prickling all over like I'd stepped out into sudden cold. I read the page again and again, the words refusing to make sense. Impaired? Guardianship? I'd sat right next to her at that appointment. How could this happen, so fast, without a word to me? My hands shook as I flipped through the packet, searching for any explanation, any hint of who'd done this. There was nothing but signatures and boxes ticked by people I'd never met. It felt like I was falling, slow motion, through some hidden trapdoor in my own front hallway. I grabbed my phone, scrolling for the number listed on the guardianship notice. The line rang to a robotic voice. You have reached the Office of Adult Protective Services. For information regarding guardianship cases, press 3. My finger punched the number, desperate. A hold tone buzzed into my ear, tinny and endless. Finally, a voice picked up. Case number, please. I gave it. There was a pause, shuffling. Then, I'm sorry, you are not listed as an authorized contact at this time. All inquiries must go through the appointed guardian. I pressed harder. I'm her daughter. I need to know what's happening. I need to see her medical records, her bank accounts. A click, then the line went dead. I stared at my phone's blank screen, a pulse pounding behind my eyes. I tried logging into Mom's online banking. The passwords we'd scribbled years ago on a notepad by her phone. Access denied. Account locked, by court order. I pressed my lips together until they hurt. Every route I tried, emailing her primary, calling her pharmacy, even checking her old voicemails, led to the same brick wall. Due to the pending guardianship action, we are unable to release information. I wanted to scream. Instead, I sat with my fists clenched in my lap, the skin going raw along my knuckles. I stared at the list of numbers. Dr. Alori's office, again. I dialed. The receptionist answered, her voice slow, careful, almost rehearsed. Dr. Alori is unavailable. Anything you need must go through the guardian. I just want to talk to her for 2 minutes, I said, voice cracking. I need to understand what's happening. My mother was fine last week. Her tone cooled. Ma'am, we are following protocol. Please do not interfere with the protective process. It's for your mother's safety. I swallowed, acid rising in my throat. The phone felt slippery, heavy. Behind her words I heard an edge, a warning. I stared out the window, the weak sunlight striping the floor. I tried to picture Mom, her laugh, the way she'd tap her mug twice before sipping. Did she remember that now, or had the world closed in around her, too? I wondered, suddenly, what other decisions about her life were being made behind doors I couldn't even locate. My thumb stuck to the corner of the folder, the cheap manila already curling at the edges. I spread the papers across my lap, knees pressed up against my kitchen table, the clock stuttering out each half second. Ruth's medical evaluation sat on top, but something was wrong. Her signature was missing from page 1. I squinted, tracing my finger over the line where her name should be, a faint indentation, as if someone had pressed a pen but never committed. My heartbeat rattled behind my sternum, the back of my neck prickling. There was a summary, hastily typed, 3 lines, her diagnosis boxed in with a single checkmark. I held it up to the light, searching for something, anything, that would explain how an afternoon appointment could rearrange my entire life. The kitchen felt smaller, ceiling lower. I pressed the folder flat, willing the paper to give up its secrets, and felt my resolve dig in. If there was a mistake, I was going to find it. A call to the bank sent me spiraling into another kind of uncertainty. On speaker, the rep's voice was neutral, almost bored. For security purposes, I can't give details, ma'am, but your mother's accounts are under court restriction. I gripped the phone, cold sweat slicking my palm. I'd just seen a $5,000 transfer out, posted 3 days ago, gone to a private entity I didn't recognize. My pulse thudded in my ears. That wasn't me, or my mother. The silence on the other end was sharp, the kind that closes a door. I stared at the numbers glowing from the screen, calculation and fear mixing in my gut. If someone else was moving her money, what else had already slipped from our hands? I pinched the bridge of my nose, realizing I was suddenly, truly locked out, not just of her finances, but of whatever story was being written in her name. The next morning, I waited in a hard plastic chair outside Ruth's old exam room, the smell of disinfectant settling in my throat. A nurse I half recognized brushed past, her badge turned away. I caught her sleeve. Excuse me, about my mother's evaluation last week. She hesitated, glancing around, then leaned in, voice thin. It was quick. Dr. James barely spoke to her. I felt breath push up out of my chest, hope threading through the tension. How quick? She shrugged, uneasy. Maybe 5 minutes. He just ticked boxes. My mind raced. 5 minutes for a diagnosis that upended everything? I met the nurse's eyes, testing for any flicker of deceit, and saw only discomfort. I'm not supposed to say more, she whispered, backing away. My hands trembled. Maybe I wasn't imagining the shortcuts. Maybe I could fight this. Paperwork in hand, I confronted the guardian in his office, the air thick with citrusy cologne and the steady clicking of his keyboard. He didn't look up. This is all standard procedure, Ms. Marquez. Families always think it's a mistake. I set the document on his desk, the summary page glaring up at us. She was never examined properly. There's no signature. Someone's moving her money without consent. He finally met my gaze, eyes flat, mouth pinched. You're in denial. The court appointed me for a reason. My fists curled tight, nails biting my skin. You don't know her. You don't know us. He waved a hand, already bored. The law is clear. If you have concerns, take it up with the judge. Heat surged in my cheeks, the urge to shout building behind my teeth, but I swallowed it back. He'd closed the door on me, too, but this felt different, like a dare. I stepped into the hallway, chest tight, anger twisting into something sharper. I wasn't backing down. Not now. Not when the story was changing with every form I couldn't read and every answer no one wanted to give. The envelope from the probate court sits unopened on my kitchen table, its crisp corners an accusation. I slide the dull knife under the flap, hands shaky, and pull out a stack of filings, motions, orders, and the petition that started it all. Near the bottom, in a photocopied scrawl, there's an unsigned note. Urgent, risk of harm if delay. Expedite. I read it 3 times, the word swimming, a cold pinprick running up my neck. My mouth tastes metallic. I scan for a signature, a letterhead, anything. Nothing. Why would someone push this through off the record? This wasn't just bureaucracy. Someone wanted me out of the way, and fast. There's a sick twist in my chest. My mind spins to every rushed phone call, every tight smile from the caseworker. Who decided my mother needed saving from me? My cheeks flush hot, protest swelling up, but no one to hear it but stacks of paper. I grip the table's edge, knuckles white, and search for an answer. If there's a trail, I'll find it. I have to. The next morning, I log into Mom's bank's online portal, blinking through sleep and fury. The "Account access restricted" banner glares at me in digital red. But the statements are downloadable, and I click through every month, searching for patterns. There, 2 days after the guardianship order, a transfer to a name I don't know. Then another, smaller, this time flagged for consultation services. The details are clinical, but my skin prickles. I cross-reference the name with caregiver rosters from last month, Angela Okafor. She's listed as relief staff, one of Dr. Alori's referrals. My pulse pounds in my ears. The amounts aren't huge, but the timing stinks. Every click, every line item, my hope sours into anger. Was this just about Mom's welfare, or something more? The realization feels like biting into spoiled fruit. I push back from the desk, the chair's wheels squeaking. Nothing is just coincidence. Not anymore. There's a pattern here, and I'm suddenly desperate to know how deep it goes. I find myself outside Dr. Alori's office at noon, my palms damp. The waiting room smells of disinfectant and eucalyptus. When he ushers me in, his eyes flicker too quickly, like he's bracing for something. I put the printed statements on his desk, voice sharper than I intend. Why did Mom's money go to your referral the day after you signed that evaluation? He freezes, face a mask of concern. That's a standard payment. For extra care. Your mother, she needed supervision. My fingers tremble, but I don't look away. You signed off on a petition that cut me out. And then your staff got paid. Silence stretches. He smooths his tie, gaze darting. It's complicated, Elena. Guardianship. There are protocols. I followed them. His denial is practiced, but his knuckles are pale where he grips the desk. I'm not sure who's more scared, him or me. I leave without another word. The air outside is thick and gray, the world smaller than before. Back home, I dial the courthouse clerk. The call rings, goes to hold, then a brisk voice comes on. I recite my motion for review, fingers cramped around the phone. She sounds bored, reciting, "You can file, but the court's schedule is full. These matters are decided in the ward's best interest." Best interest. The phrase echoes, hollow and official. But new evidence, I start. Submitted in writing. There's a backlog. 6 weeks, maybe more. My heartbeat flutters, high in my throat. I press, but she's already moved on, a dull click as the line drops. The system isn't just slow, it's designed to keep me out. I stare at the motion form, legalese blurring, feeling boxed in from all sides. I shuffle through old flash drives that night, searching for something, anything the court will have to see. One labeled, Ruth Birthday, catches my eye. I plug it in. The video wobbles into focus. Mom at her kitchen table, slicing apples, laughing, naming ingredients for a pie. The timestamp is clear, 4 days before the evaluation that declared her unable to manage. I rewind, watching her hands work, sure, steady, familiar. My chest feels lighter for the first time in weeks. This isn't just a memory. It's proof. If I can just get someone to watch this, maybe the story isn't over yet. But as I copy the file to my laptop, a shadow flickers in the hallway mirror. My own reflection, or someone moving behind me. The certainty I'm onto something pulses in my veins, hot and electric, but so does the fear that someone is watching every step I take. The courtroom is colder than I expect. My chair squeaks when I shift, every sound amplified, bouncing off high beige walls. The judge's gaze drags over me, then to my mother, her hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on a crack in the table. My lawyer taps my wrist, so I stand. The video feels heavy in my hand, thumb trembling on the play button. The screen flickers to life. Mom, laughing at a family joke just days before her evaluation. I try to keep my voice even. This was taken the night before that doctor's visit. The prosecutor clears her throat sharply. My stomach drops, but I push on. The bank statements show account access changed after that day. My words echo. I hand the documents over, pulse thumping in my ear. I search the judge's face for any flicker, anything at all. My mother glances at me, lips barely moving. She mouths something. Thank you. The bailiff leans in, waiting for the next move. I blink back tears, hoping they see her, not just paperwork. The judge's voice is low but clear. We'll hear from the defense expert. My seat creaks when I sit, the video's afterimage still dancing in my head. A woman in a navy suit steps to the stand. Dr. Benally, the outside geriatrician, speaks with steady precision. The protocol requires 2 independent cognitive assessments, at least one unannounced. Here, only a single, scheduled evaluation occurred. No corroborating medical tests, no collateral interviews. A faint, defiant buzz fills my chest. Dr. Benally flips through the hastily signed forms, pointing out the blank sections. There's no documentation supporting a diagnosis of incapacity. In my opinion, this evaluation violated accepted medical standards. Mom straightens, fingers gripping her purse. For the first time, I see the judge really looking at the papers, brows knit, jaw set. Dr. Benally glances my way with the smallest nod, and for a moment I almost breathe easy. The hospital's attorney stands, suit stretched across his chest, voice clipped. Objection. This testimony is speculative, beyond the scope. Dr. Benally doesn't flinch. It's standard protocol. You can check any hospital's policy. A ripple of hushed voices from the hospital's end of the table. The admin, Ms. Danton, leans toward her lawyer, frantic whispers just out of earshot. I catch the word, liability. She looks pale, jaw tight. The judge cuts in, sharp. The court will consider all testimony. Ms. Danton glares, but she doesn't speak again. A sense of vindication pulses through me. At last, the cracks are showing, something ugly and hidden, now exposed. Still, I grip my hands together, knuckles sore, not daring to relax. The judge scans the stack of exhibits, lips pressed thin. Given the evidence and expert testimony, I find the guardianship was improperly granted. The room is silent but for the scratch of pen on paper. He looks directly at me, then at Mom. An inquiry is ordered into the initial evaluation and subsequent changes to Mrs. Feldman's accounts. The guardianship is reversed, effective immediately. A breath I didn't know I'd been holding rushes out. Mom sags into her chair. I catch her hand. Warm, trembling. The bank accounts, the restrictions, the months of silence, all of it begins to crack apart. But the judge isn't finished. This court will refer potential fraud and financial abuse to the state for further investigation. The overhead light seems suddenly too bright. Mom squeezes my hand, whispering, "Does this mean I'm free?" I can't answer, my voice shakes too much. Relief floods through me, but underneath it, something colder stirs. The fight isn't over, and in the hallway outside, I see Ms. Danton on her phone, voice sharp, eyes narrowed. Something tells me this isn't the last time I'll see her. Ruth's slippers scuffed the hallway as she stepped back into her house, sunlight striping the floor where dust motes danced. I hovered, half expecting her to falter, but she only glanced at the closed piano and gave a soft, "Well, I suppose it's still home." My chest loosened, just a little, hearing her say that, her voice steadier than I'd heard in weeks. The air was thick with the lingering scent of lemon polish, a thread of normalcy I hadn't dared count on. Later, I sat across the table from the state investigator, the clock ticking louder than her questions. My hands trembled, palm pressed to the stack of copied forms, the evaluation, the petition, all those desperate signatures. I caught myself gripping the edge of the table, forcing my breath slow. The investigator's eyes lingered on the dates, then on me, silent for a long moment. "This shouldn't have happened," she said. A pulse of anger and exhausted relief hit me, swirling together. Something in the system was being forced to see us, finally. Outside, my phone buzzed. A message from my brother, terse and unreadable. I hesitated, thumb hovering. For the first time in months, I wondered if we might actually get to rewrite what comes next.